we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate tuning in as we'll have Frank Milburn here on the show. We're going to be talking about the uglier side of ufology, what's going on behind the scenes of everything UFO. Before we bring Frank in, let's say hello to each and every one of you. We got Ann B in the gold medal position. Sugar Britches taking home the silver with Race Fan in the bronze medal position. Kurt M, how you doing? Frank, I do see you, by the way. I'll bring you on here momentarily. Kurt M, Roy Boy, how you doing? Penny Van, nice to see you. Lisa C and Alex Sanchez. Brown Dwarf, nice to have you all here. Les Paul Holland and D Cohen, good to see you. Stephanie Kenny Blankenship, always a pleasure. Mama Catherine, mwah, just for you, my dear. Just for you. We love you. How you doing? I hope you're having a great day. Sweet Donna, how are you? And Laura Lobbs. Hey, Catherine, thank you so much for kicking off the Super Chat. The Super Chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you so much. Human Carl, how are you? A great veteran of the United States Air Force. We love you, Human Carl. Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, nice to see you. And Jessica Tim Mothman is back. Tim Mothman will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Moving on. Dogface Simon in Australia. Thank you for the love with that super chat. Very much appreciated. Nicole Sackage, how are you? I tried calling you before the show and you didn't pick up, but I did try. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. How's Samantha feeling? Give her some love from us, if you don't mind. Millennium, my man. Good to see you. Digger Dog, how you doing? Sweet Amy WC. Amy will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Ozzy, oi, oi to you. And Boss Monster, how are you? And Robin McCrae, she'll be on for Super Duke and the Crypted Report. Aaron Shaw, how you doing? Welcome to SOR Chat. Sir Grizz, Pixie Lara, Jerry, how you doing? Roger Murray, and Christine Lynn, thank you all for coming on in. Derek Galloway, what's happening? Canada Disclosure, man. Canada Disclosure on its way. Dave Walters, what's happening down the 97, man? How you doing? Excuse me. Paramarv and Chillgasm, good to see you both. As we continue on with our roll call, there's the lovely Cosmic Fleur. And who else do we have here? Robert Lamoth, number 17 in your program, starting at center ice tonight from Stockholm, Sweden. Lars Janssen, TMI, and Gizmo, good to see you. O-Red's Teeth, nice to have you back. Keyshawn, Nancy Thames, thank you for joining us. And there's Sharon Gee, how you doing? Nice to see you. Sweet Donna Spencer, much love to you, my friend. And Jurassic Joey, Pink Volo, good to see you both. Moving on down, Gene Beckett, how are you? It's been a while. Glad to have you back. And Nikki in Seattle, Sycophia, how you guys doing? Stargazer, thanks for joining us. And let's see here. Flying Monkey, good to see you. Moving on, Ann Palmer looking awesome. Let's start the radio side so we can get Bill WD40 into the chat room to lube us up for tonight's show. Hilton, how you doing, man? Hi, Mike Bothwell. Omar J. Ahmad, welcome to SOR Chat, my friend. Good to have you here. And Deb from SAC, thank you for joining us. And little Debbie, I promised you something. So there we go. And where else are we here? So we are running out of time. Michael from VA, welcome. Skip to Malou, thank you for coming on in. Pammy Smith, nice to see you. And yeah, don't forget, Super Chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show. And of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. If you're new here, go shopping on our website. Hit the thumbs up, hit the thumbs down, hit subscribe and the bell because we are here 7 days a week. And for the rest of you, horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us, will you, at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by CHIVE Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting CHIVE Charities today. You can find them on our website. It's a power show of information when it comes to UFOs tonight. There's a lot of big news coming on out. Former British Special Forces guy Frank Milburn is here to discuss the ugly side behind the scenes of ufology. Oh, we're going to dig deep. Yeah, bring your shovels. Then in hour number 3, from Among the Missing, Steve Stockton will kick it off with another spooky story. Then, after that, we will have Robin McCrae in for the elongated Crypted reports. Frank Milburn is a former military intelligence officer of 22 years who now focuses on science, technology, and the UFO phenomena. Frank is an alumnus of Sandhurst, has his degree in international relations from London School of Economics. This man is in tune when it comes to everything UFOs these days. It is the secrets behind the secrets that Frank and many others are looking for, because there is a true story out there. What that story is, the public yet is to know. That is why I wanted to bring him on tonight for all of you to dig on in. Frank Milburn, it is a pleasure to have you back on Spaced Out Radio. It's been way too long, but things are getting nasty in the UFO world, and we needed to chat with you about it, my man.
Yeah, hi, mate. Nice to be back on. And I just want to say, excuse me, anybody, if I sound a bit throaty, it's because I am at the moment.
Frank, you know what? We see a lot of news coming out of Canada today with Member of Parliament Larry McGuire sending a letter out to Defense Minister Anita Anand about potential crash retrievals and what is happening and what does the Canadian government know. Canada's getting involved. We've heard a lot of talk about the Five Eyes recently, which is the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia when it comes to UAP and everything that kind of stands around it. Are we getting to a point now, my friend, where this subject just cannot be swept under the rug any longer?
Yeah, I think there's too much water on the bridge now, or too much toothpaste out of the tube, however when you look at it. And I think with this latest whistleblower, it's going to generate a momentum of its own. Now, depending upon how the investigations are carried out by the two inspector generals, the one at DOD and the one for the intelligence community, dependent upon how those investigations are carried out, one into the revelations that Congress is being misled, and the other one into the reprisals against the whistleblower. Depending upon how those investigations come out, will affect in large part how other whistleblowers and people with access come out. Because we already saw with RO that there were a few people saying publicly that that they knew people who didn't have not just respect for, but they didn't have a faith in coming out to RO.
I want to ask you, because there is so much going on behind the scenes, Frank. We see the military agencies and the government agencies and the U.S. government really trying to sweep this subject back under the rug. We see, the idea that we shouldn't expect any more videos. Then somebody like David Grush comes along, and I can confirm as of today, publicly, that my sources have told me that Grush has even met with the Canadian government a couple of times regarding the subject of UFOs, crash retrievals, and what Canada and the U.S. have worked on together. I mean, we're hearing a lot of back and forth pandering here towards the subject of whether or not we want it to continue. Is this just normalcy for the way this is going to play out?
I think there's going to be resistance on the part of those who don't want the various aspects of the phenomena to come out. I think that we're really looking at the whistleblowing about crash retrievals and about exploitation of said materials is going to be one thing, but what happens when people start coming out talking about abductions? Because that's another issue that hasn't really been touched on yet. Elizondo's kind of referred to it, but I think that's another area that the US government, certainly, and other governments are going to have to come to look at in a public way sooner or later, because pressure will be building there. The more that comes out, reference to crash retrievals, the more that comes out about potentially hostile non-human intelligences, then I think it's going to build a momentum, and all these other issues are going to start coming out as well. And there's simply too many people who've had experiences, for good or for bad, to deny that.
I want to, as a Canadian, talk about the Canadian side of everything, because member of parliament of the Conservative Party, which is in the official opposition, Larry Maguire, sent a letter, as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, really putting the pressure on the Ministry of Defense to come out and say what they know. Now, a lot of people are calling this a real bombshell letter, and the people I talked to in Ottawa, Canada's capital today, who are in the know, said no, it's more about pressure. It's more about getting this subject going. It's more about the fact that there's a lot going on in Canadian politics right now, that sometimes you have to fire a salvo over one's bow to say, hey, we haven't forgotten about this, and when are we going to talk about it? Out of everything that you have studied and how do you think that's playing out? And what is Canada's role in ufology?
I think Canada's got a very important role, and going all the way back to the 50s, and they've been pretty well dug in with the Americans as well. And there's certainly been Canadian interest in the topic. But I did find actually the letter. Okay, people are saying it's not bombshell, but I mean it's very interesting when it's talking about AUKUS, the America UK, the AUKUS agreement with Canada, UK, and USA, and also talking about what they call the Five Eyes material program. So, I mean, we haven't heard that before, and that's very, very interesting. And talking about Canada's efforts on UAP going back, to 1950. So that's very, very interesting. I mean, I assumed that Five Eyes, as an intelligence agreement between the five countries concerned, would be sharing information on UAP, and some kind of information had come out about that. But to actually have a named program, the Five Eyes Foreign Material Program, very, very interesting.
Yeah, I'm not saying that we should poo-poo the letter, and it's definitely not fake. But I guess what I'm saying is, when we're going back to the 1950s, it's been very well known, and Grant Cameron has been well versed and documented on the Wilbur Smith scenario, where Wilbur Smith was someone who was meant to look into the UFO stories way back in the day by the Canadian government, and the American government really couldn't get their stuff together, shall we say, and they actually approached Wilbur Smith to help them put it all together as well. So, I mean, it's an important part that ties the American and Canadian UFO story together here in North America, but the idea that this is happening, that there is, a massive approach into what they are doing with this subject. Do we still look at it as a threat narrative, or do we look at it as this is something of scientific value?
Well, I think both. If we look at what Grosh's statement that some non-human intelligences have displayed sort of malevolence in their activities, in terms of harming humans, in terms of carrying out intelligence surveillance and reconnaissance, as he put it, around nuclear silos. Then yeah, I think the military has a role to play. But I mean, obviously, the much wider scientific community have a role to play because of the huge paradigm changing shifts that could be brought about by knowledge of this technology coming out. In terms of the transportation, aviation, I mean, industry across the board, our energy, our upstream, our downstream, and also how it affects society. But I mean, the wonders of science that can come out of this, it goes far beyond the military sphere. I think with efforts like your Galileo project and with organizations like the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, who I'm a part of, I think it's very, very important that that the scientific aspects are developed for the benefit of all mankind. I will say I would caveat that I don't think we're at the stage yet where the United States and the Five Eyes really want to be sharing that technology with the likes of China and Russia at all, because those countries do nasty things to their own people and do or want to do nasty things to people outside their countries. But long term benefit of mankind, that should be the goal of any study of UAP. How can we advance ourselves? How can we protect the planet? And how can we become a better race of people and not spiral into our own self-destruction as we seem to have been doing for so long?
Well, I mean, but that's the thing. I mean, for so long, and I haven't been doing this as long as you have. I've been only going at this almost 9 years now. But Frank, the one thing that I have noticed is we keep painting this picture around the circle. We're not getting into any information that's within that circle. That's where the juice is. That's where the stories are. That's where the contact is, the crash retrievals, the aliens, if we've made contact. How do we get there? Because there seems to be a lot of confusion as to which direction we should be taking with this.
Well, I think we are getting there slowly. I mean, for people that who the process hasn't been fast enough. I mean, just look at what happened in the 7 decades up to 2017. Relatively little comparatively. I mean, despite huge amount of UAP activity, huge amount of sightings, a huge amount of experiences talking about their what's happened to them. Look at what's happened up to 2017, and look how much has happened since 2017. So if anybody is in doubt about the pace of change, just make a comparison between those two those ranges of years, from sort of 1945 to 2017, and then from 2017 onwards. And I think it is going in the right direction. The more people come out, then the faster it'll be, like a snowball. It'll pick up momentum. I think certain things are always going to be kind of off the menu. So I don't think we're going to see alien bodies, or we're going to see craft and hangars, just as you wouldn't expect to be shown around and have explained to you the inner workings of all the sensors on an American or British nuclear submarine. You just wouldn't, because it's a military secret. So some things aren't going to be coming out anytime soon.
Why not? What is the big secret? I can understand, and let me define that for a second, because a lot of people say, Dave, that's a real naive question. Okay. But to me, I'm curious to know why this is still a top secret story. Humanity rides on whether or not we're alone in the universe or not. That's going to push us way into the future. And yet we see these people fighting back on whether or not we as the public should know, treating us like kindergarten children, that we're not good enough, we're not mature enough to know about what is real and what is not. Frank, what's the secret?
Well, I absolutely agree with you. I think there's a number of strands to this. I think originally, from the to the late 40s, early 50s, the people who were responsible for these programs in the States, they were worried. It was during the period of the Cold War. They were worried, about the Soviets at the same time. But also as well, I think over the years, they were very worried about, how do we explain the kind of contacts we've been having to the public? How do we explain situations where, the public may be at risk, where our, aircraft aviation is at risk, where, these UAP can operate in our skies and our oceans and in our kind of near Earth orbit with impunity? How do we explain that? And I think what happened from there is, this cover-up, developed a very ruthless cover-up as well. It developed, sort of a momentum all of its own. And then once you've actually started doing nasty things in the interest of maintaining the cover-up, then, you have to keep those secrets as well, where people have been killed or people have had their careers ruined, people have, been smeared, been ridiculed, been driven out of working, of their jobs, and basically had their lives made miserable. But I think there are also, legitimate reasons, and the people who did that, they thought that they were doing it for legitimate reasons, in terms of, protecting the technology that they're trying to develop, the propulsion, the potential weapon system applications, and also as well, the sort of free energy aspect of it as well, because I'm told by scientists that can be incredibly dangerous. While at the same time you can, extract, virtually unlimited amounts of energy from the ether. Also as well, you can create an incredible weapon system from that. And just as with nukes, you wouldn't want them falling into the hands of somebody like, Islamic State, or a very well-resourced, operator, as it was like back in 2016, or somebody like Hezbollah, a transnational narco-terrorist organization, which has literally billions in income, which works hand in glove with Iran, and which would have the resources to develop such a weapon. So I think we've got to be very careful, but we've got to be separate from, what the public has a right to know and what is expected under, America's legal system and constitution, and also what's acceptable in Western societies in general. Because at the end of the day, the military or the military industrial intelligence complex and aerospace complex shouldn't be working in a vacuum. It should be accountable to the various governments of the countries where they operate.
Well, and that's the point that I'm getting at is, to me, the secrets aren't about the aliens. It isn't about whether they're here. I have zero fear. I'm not saying all aliens are good, but I have zero fear that if an alien species has been coming here for centuries, let's say they have been, okay, there is scripture written out there, whether you believe it or not, that maybe we have had contact for a long, long time. If they could travel across the universe somehow, I don't think they are afraid of nuclear missiles. I really don't. But that's just me. You may beg to differ. I would like to know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, certainly. First of all, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. And I think there's more than ample kind of evidence in the historical context. I mean, from, sort of from the age of antiquity, the Romans and Greeks, and you had major battles and they'd see UAP and things like that, and all the way through history. I mean, maybe UAP would have been around a lot longer than that. I think in terms of they're not afraid of nukes. Well, if they are, as Grush contends, living in a sort of like a parallel dimension, maybe our use of nukes impinges upon them in some way and disturbs them. That's just one theory. And also as well, in terms of, do we present a threat to them? Well, if they've been around for a long, long time, they would have seen us, with spears and swords and cannons and kind of but graduating very, very quickly and exponentially, like a snowball again, to develop nukes and interballistic missiles. And then now suddenly, this race of human beings who have had no problems over the centuries committing, horrible, massacres and genocide against each other and also against other species and destroying the planet. And now we're actually moving into space. So in terms of the time that they've been observing us, we may only now, in a relatively short space of time for both us and them, be presenting a threat. That's just one theory that I have. And humans are very, very adaptable, and we've advanced incredibly rapidly. So maybe we are disturbing them in some way also as well. I mean, if you're talking ultra-terrestrials, if you're living underground or you're living in the oceans and you have like 4,000 plus, atmospheric, underground, subsea explosions going on, nuke explosions. I mean, that would really ruin your day, wouldn't it? If you're sharing the earth with human beings and you've hitherto been undetected. So that's just a theory that I have. I wouldn't underestimate the extent to which they view our capacity for being completely destructive, not only towards ourselves, but also potentially towards them. So if we go and and you hear Eric Davis and, oh, well, we want to develop UAP technology by 2050. That might be quite alarming for somebody who has that technology. Just as any country on earth would be alarmed by North Korea or Iran. North Korea having nuclear weapons and Iran wanting to have nuclear weapons because they have stated objectives that they want to use them. Right? So I think we have to sort out really what their perceptions might be of ours as well, and not just say, well, I've always said, look at them, whoever they are or wherever they're from or when they're from, look at them on a case-by-case basis, because as yet we can't figure out their intentions. But there's been a lot of people who say, well, they've had very good experiences. Other people, they've been taken, abducted, had horrible things done to them. So not so nice experiences. So I think we have to take it on a case-by-case basis. And we're not necessarily dealing with one form of non-human intelligence. I mean, Grash is talking about one. Maybe there's more. We don't know.
Okay, so to me, then, the big secret is this. What is the U.S. government holding, or what do they know, if we can focus on them for right now? What do they know that they don't want the public to know about? Is it hyper technology? Is it, free energy? Is it being able to cross through portals in space to get to the moon or get to the Mars or other planets much deeper in space, much quicker? I mean, this is the stuff I think that they are hiding. This is the stuff, when David Grush talks about, that we have crash retrievals, some that are crashed and split up and others that are still intact. That tells me that this story is much bigger than what we truly know, Frank.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, all the above that you mentioned. And I think, if you're looking at somewhere like Skinwalker, how does the US government explain, well, one, there's a portal or portals and these UAP are coming through, and there's cryptids coming through, and there's things that can't be hurt, by our conventional weaponry. We've got no means of stopping these UAP. Oh, and there's also something invisible that can, mess with your life and will follow you home, even if you live thousands of kilometers away, and then mess with your family. And anybody who comes around, it'll start messing with their families as well. Oh, and also as well, it can exsanguinate 200-pound cows, calves. Completely invisibly, completely stealthily, without leaving any tracks. I think those are the kind of difficult answers that the government is going to have. And also as well, the government's efforts to cover this up, because people have been killed. People have been killed over the last 8 decades. People have had their lives ruined. And, the more you get into the sort of like the parallel state or the state within a state, and the more unconstitutionality that you have, the more questions there are to be answered, the more you create a can of worms for yourself that you never want to be opened. Because once you open that can of worms, it all comes down. I mean, even in the sort of the business sphere, if you have, imagine how many trillion or, certainly billion-dollar lawsuits you could have. If one aerospace and defense company has had access, or 2 or 3 have had access to this technology, but other aerospace and defense companies haven't. So who's got the advantage? Somebody has been given an unfair advantage, which is illegal under American law, and which is certainly legal, in European law and UK law.
Very interesting. As we got about 1 minute to go here before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour here, Space Out Radio, and Frank Milburn continuing on Ugly Side of Ufology. Frank, when I look at those deep secrets that we may not know, whether or not we have contact or whether or not we've traded humans for technology, did Eisenhower meet with extraterrestrials? What happened at Holloman Air Force Base? Is Bob Lazar real? To me, right now, loosely saying it, I don't think there's any question that could be off the table. 30 seconds.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It's just how much is going to be accessible to us as the public, and how much, I think it all has to come out for cleared members of Congress, people who are supposed to be having oversight over these programs. They need to know, because they represent the people of America. So they definitely need to know. How much we will get to know is the question.
Exactly. And that is the big question. Frank Milburn is here tonight on Spaced Out Radio, Science, Technology, and Ufology. When we return with Frank here, disclosure for dollars. We see a lot of companies jumping on board, wanting to be a part of this UFO startup. Where are they going with it? What's with the money-hungry people out there? Let's find out from Frank right after this. All right, buddy, we are clear for 5 minutes. Don't forget our
Mate,
YouTube.
thanks for having me on. This is actually really made me feel better as well, because I was feeling pretty crap yesterday. I didn't get a lot of sleep, but this has kind of like brought me out of my shell, as it were. So thank you.
Good. And don't forget our YouTube audience can still hear us. So
yeah, no worries, mate. I mean, I'll be quite honest. I thought I might have to jack on you, but then I thought, no, let's get the job done.
Well, so far so good, my man. So far so good. Let's say hello to Justin Shapker and his amazing hair. It is gorgeous. I think today was shampoo day and conditioner day for Justin, so I'm excited about that. Dirty Fylth, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Oh, I'm so sore. Let's see. Anybody else? Come on in. Mark Sanchez, give us an update on your Hawaiian shirt for tonight. Lost Sock, welcome back. And let's see. I think we are caught up in people now. And let's see. Renee McDowell, where have you been hiding? Hey, Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast. How are you, ladies? Good to see you tonight. Random guy wants to know, Frank, are you wearing a parachute as we speak? Oh, he's freezing up. I don't know if you caught that, Frank.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that. Can you say again, please?
Random guy would like to know, are you wearing a parachute?
Right, no, I'm not. I actually have a like a sort of really light sweatshirt made out of parachute silk, which is actually brilliant. Some of the wives of the soldiers used to make them out of parachute silk. They're great bits of kit because they fold up really, really small. So you can just stick them in your pocket, and then when it gets cold, you put them on, and the parachute silk is actually windproof, and it dries very, very quickly as well when it gets wet. And it's very light, and it just gives you a layer of warmth, which is great.
Random guy is also in our private chat room that we chatted. You'll just have to figure out who that is, though. Amber Dawn Glover, you're looking good tonight. Thank you for tuning on in. And Evan Walters, you're pissing me off. Yes, and for people who don't know, as Random Guy says, Frank was a paratrooper, one badass dude, man. He jumped up out of enough C-130 Herculeses to know what the knees feel like. Absolutely. And let's see here. We got about just over 2 minutes here.
Okay.
Stevie Franchise, good to have you back.
I'm just having a look through.
Oh, well. That's why I have Tums here. Tum.
Just having a look through Liberation Times. I love Liberation Times.
Chris is doing great work. Great work.
Man, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, generally, like Liberation Times, a debrief, all the people who write for them, and also other commentators, podcasts, and it's amazing how people have stepped in to fill this kind of void of news, effectively, and analysis on UAP. But now some of the mainstream media, I was looking on The Hill on YouTube earlier, some of them are actually starting to ask all the right questions as well. It's really quite remarkable. And I hope we're going to get more and more away from the silly aspect of it and the ridicule, and to keep going, and mainstream media to take it seriously.
We're working on it, my man. We are working on it. Yes, Paul Francis, the member of parliament letter from Larry McGuire is 100% authentic. I have confirmed that on a bunch of different scales today. And yes, it is very weird, very real. Pardon me. We got 30 seconds. Big thank you to Mama Catherine, Simon, Deb, Carl, Area 51, Pammy, and Jenny for the great super chats, and very much appreciate it. And random guy, you may have won the Stanley Cup down in Vegas, but we're bringing home disclosure here in Canada. So, hey, somebody's got to do it. Here we go, everyone. We got 5 seconds. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Here we go. Frank Milburn, former paratrooper. He is heavily involved in the United Kingdom and the world when it comes to UFOs, studies, and everything. And Frank, I'm very curious because we see a lot of groups popping up lately, from Enigma Labs to Galileo Project, UAPX, fighter pilots going for it. Ryan Graves has his own group, the SCU, and many, many others coming out of the woodworks. It's almost like we're getting to a point of disclosure for dollars, where everybody's racing for money. NASA wants $100 billion. You know, Avi Loeb for Galileo wants $50 billion. Probably $100 million. We have Dr. Stephen Greer wanting $50 billion. Everybody wants money out of this. What's your thoughts on this disclosure for dollars and all these groups popping up out of nowhere?
Well, I mean, there are interesting groups and there are not so interesting groups. I think, people like Ryan Graves, they do an absolutely fantastic job. Somebody of his stature and his experience, and with American aeronautics, I think that's very, very interesting. I think, SCU has its part to play as well. And obviously they're tied in with UAPX. People like Dr. Kevin Knuth do an amazing, amazing job there. Stephen Greer, I'm not so sure about. I won't comment on that. But I think, that it's really, really important. I think the types of, the amounts of money that they're asking for, really, I mean, it's a kind of a drop in the ocean compared to the benefits that could be accrued from actually, discovering the truth, as it were, and exploiting the potential technologies for the benefit of all people. So I think it's a good thing. I think the more that serious scientific people get involved in the topic, and the more that, kind of the really kooky kind of UFO cult conspiracy nut jobs are kind of like left behind as a legacy of, kind of years of problems in the UFO community, I think then that's much, much better. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of people in the UFO community who do really, really great work and have done for decades. But I think their problem has been they've always been tarnished with the sort of the completely illogical fringe. And I think the more that we as human beings, the more that we go in a scientific direction towards study of UAP, the technology, but also the wider phenomena, then the better it is for everybody. Things that you can actually count in your hand. Things that you can quantify, things that you can explain to other people, with proof.
I'm actually quite surprised by that answer by you, because I know that you want full-on disclosure. I know that you want transparency through this entire subject. I know that you're pushing for the little guy just as much as you're pushing for the big guys on campus. But I guess where I'm surprised is a lot of these groups like Enigma Labs and others really don't want the public to know about what's going on. They don't want transparency. They want to be able to do this for their own merit. So where's the freedom in that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about the very scientific based ones, the kind of open ones like SCU. I mean, SCU, they get some great brains together. They look at a particular topic and they produce brilliant reports on it, like, with limits, the limits case, with the Aguadilla Puerto Rico reports. That's what I want to see more of. And more of what, Ryan Graves does as well. And more of what people do for airline safety in terms of publicizing it and making people aware of the potential risks. And bringing, taking the stigma out of the whole equation as well. I'm really interested in, a sort of a sensible, logical, sort of science-based approach to it, and getting rid of all the nonsense and all the baggage that's been around for years. Because just as we want to get rid of, the ridicule, and the snarkiness that's been directed at the topic. The only way that you're really going to do that is by moving away from the silliness and making sure that it's very, very tight and scientific.
Okay, so how do you take that scientific aspect then and bring it out to the public without holding on to the secrets? Because most of the scientists who are actually delving into this phenomena right now, one way or another, are tied to government agencies or the government community.
Yeah, I think that's going to be very, very difficult. But I mean, things like Galileo project, looking at Amuna and things like that. I think there are things that can be released to the public. I mean, look, I'm about disclosure, but I'm not about opening the hangar doors and exposing, all of, like the Five Eyes America, whatever you want to say, of America's, innermost military secrets to its enemies. I'm not about that at all. There's things that, just as with any other potential weapon system or platform that the Americans or the Brits or anybody else are developing, those have to be protected. That goes without saying. That's national security. But I do want to see, science explaining to the public, what's around us and what's out there and how it affects us, and also what we can do to contribute.
Okay, so in your opinion, then, what is the role of the public? I understand what you're saying, okay, and I think it's paramount to a lot of people to explain. You're not saying that, experiencers who are having real interactions with these things are people that need to go away. You're saying the hooligans that are out there who are really trying to make a mockery of this field, whether it's by their storytelling or their overexertion into skepticism, is what's driving you nuts. Am I correct?
Yeah, I've never liked the silliness aspect of it, and I think the main role that the public have to play actually is, apart from wanting answers, is really to press their lawmakers to hold their government to account, whether it's in the USA or whether it's in the UK, Canada, wherever. That's the role of the public. Is we, as citizens, we have a right to expect things of our government. We give up certain freedoms for protection by the government for certain services that the government can provide, for us. So we have a right to expect things, and also I think we've got a duty to hold government to account and to make sure that there aren't inner governments and cabals within government that are subverting the democratic process. But at the same time, to be realistic as to what might, what will be divulged to us. Like I said before, we wouldn't expect to be told all the acoustic properties of a submarine, or some very quiet new propulsion system that's been developed for an aircraft. We wouldn't expect to be told the inner workings of that, so we shouldn't expect that about UAP either. But we should be holding government to account, very much so, because the more secrets and lies there are, then the less of a democracy it becomes. Yeah, and we're supposed to pride ourselves on having a better system, as it were, than the places like China, North Korea, and Russia that don't disclose things to their own people and that aren't transparent. So we need to hold that light up to ourselves as well. And I don't think that there can be a real democracy while there are all these kind of dirty secrets and terrible things that have been done and that have been swept under the carpet. Now, as far as all the shenanigans are going on, I don't necessarily think that it's in the public interest for those to come out in public. I mean, if you look at America, how divided it's been politically in recent years. I mean, absolutely, literally to the point of armed insurrection on Capitol Hill. But I think definitely people in Congress need to be aware of that. I just don't want to see some kind of shock to the American system by revelations coming out that make sort of Watergate look like a tea party by comparison, because there is the potential, if all the kind of dirty laundry comes out in the wash in public, there is the potential for major sort of political upheaval, which isn't good for America at this time, because international relations is so unstable at the moment.
Well, and that's the big one. Is it gets back to what I asked you earlier. What are the secrets? What are they trying to hide? Never mind what they have, but what are they trying to hide?
Well, I think definitely the kind of like the invisible phenomena, whether it's UFOs phasing in and out of our reality, or using some kind of cloaking device, to the kind of the invisible creatures and cryptids and the disembodied voices and the hitchhikers that harm. If we look at Skinwalkers at Pentagon, harm did come to people from contact with orbs and with said entities. So I think that's one thing they're going to want to cover up. Also, the thing about the portals they're going to want to cover up, and also the abductions. How long have they known about abductions? Right, they must know a lot more than is being said. How long did they know about abductions? How long have they tolerated abductions? For example, is there some kind of X-Files scenario whereby they were receiving technology or information from NHIs in return for looking the other way while they take animal and human specimens? So that would be a really, really, really big one.
Frank, and the people that you have talked to regarding crashes, crash retrievals, and you've talked to some very high insider people over the years regarding this, is there a fear, or is there an excitement about this phenomena having their own errors and crashing on our planet, and us being able to accelerate our own technologies because of it?
Well, yeah. Just as with any technological race for a superior weapon system, whether it's in the ancient world, the steel sword against like the bronze sword, or whether it's the longbow against the knight, there's always going to be a race to find the next technology, the next sort of game-changing technology that's going to mean that your side are revolutionized in terms of your ability to take out your enemies. And unfortunately, due to human nature, I think that's always going to be a focus for the foreseeable future of people in power and people in the military. Because just look at the world now, right? Look how much this is the largest defense spenders in the world. Look how much that they spend on defense spending and effectively weapon systems and militaries, and that completely dwarfs what they spend on health. Right? So that should tell you something about human nature. We seem to be preparing. Sorry, we seem to spend a lot more money on preparing to make the world a worse place, or potentially trying to stop it becoming a worse place, than we do trying to make it a better place.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. So right now, UFOs, you could say, is all about the military-industrial complex. It's not about helping humanity.
I don't think so. I mean, I think that there's people with genuine aspirations towards that, like Elizondo and Mellon. But also, I've always said that what I think their true motivations are, and Chris wouldn't reply to me on this, but I said basically, and this is what's happening. We've heard with Grush that, there are disparate programs and that they're very compartmentalized. And just like Eric Davis said, Grush has said again that, if you've got access to one, you can't get access to another, and it stymies development forward. So really what people like, Mellon and Elizondo want, and also people like me, is to have sort of more congressional oversight of these disparate programs, have proper oversight. Then you can kind of like unite them or cross-pollinate them, so that when you have a stumbling block, one scientist can talk to another one and you get like a fuller picture, so then you can advance quicker. And that's what I think this disclosure process is about. I do think, yes, Mellon and Elizondo, people like that, they want the public to be involved. They want to prove the quality of American democracy. But I also think that they want Congress to have oversight of all these different programs, because they know that this is the beyond seventh generation revolution in military affairs, and they want to get there well before the Chinese and the Russians do. And the Chinese have said, by 2049, they want to be, the rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. They want to be back in Taiwan, and they want to be number one in the world in economic terms, financial terms, technological terms, and military terms. So that's what we're up against. And also, Eric Davis, he said, well, what happens if the occupants of the Tic Tac or the intelligences behind them prove to be hostile? And, Grush has just said, well, in some cases they are hostile. So that's another very good reason to develop the military technology aspect of it.
Okay, so how do you... Okay, and I understand that China, Russia, you always have to worry about them, especially if you are in the West. They don't like us, we don't like them, except when they send their best hockey players over. I'm okay with that. But that's another game whatsoever. Do you believe then, in the people that you have talked to, that in this disclosure for dollars movement, that privatizing UFOs or technology, or we're hearing certain crash retrievals are in the hands of private corporations? Is that a good thing for not only the United States, but for all of us in the world who would like to know what we have, what is out there?
Well, look, the development of said technologies, I mean, we need to have better accountability over it, because that's where the problem lies. The problem isn't over the development of technology itself, although some maybe would argue that it is, because human beings are intrinsically destructive. But the main problem, as I see it, is that in the military industrial kind of intelligence complex, the problem is the lack of accountability, which sort of eats at the very fabric of a democracy, right? Of a healthy democracy. So that's really, for me, the problem that has to be overcome. And also, as well, to have these different disparate programs united kind of under one roof. And I wrote about that in my second paper, talking about sort of a Manhattan Project 2, where you actually bring together all these different scientists, all these different programs, and you throw billions and billions and billions at it. And you get not only just the weapon systems, but also you get the things that are going to revolutionize aviation and transport and energy. Yeah. So how do we get there? I think initially, the really, really secret stuff, it has to stay with Congress, but they have to have oversight over it. What the public gets, the more it goes along, the more that will come out. It's difficult to push all that back inside the bottom.
Well, do you see the frustration in the public's eyes, though? Because there's 70 plus years of this, and it's 70 plus years of lies and calling people idiots and causing people jobs and causing people to do bad things to themselves because they think they're of no value or anything along those lines. The manipulation that's gone on, the veiled threats, whether it's from Roswell to Men in Black or what happened in Phoenix during the Phoenix Lights in 1997. I mean, at what point does that ball game stop?
I agree. But then you're in the difficult position of how do you get people to come forward if there aren't adequate protections for them? Because I said from, when the whistleblower clauses were in the NDAA, for example, okay, it says that, you can't be discriminated against in terms of your clearance to your job. Yeah. But it doesn't say anything about witness protection. And it doesn't say anything about, how it could really, really mess up your life or mess up your family's lives if you start being threatened, as Grush seems to have been, or at least receiving threatening phone calls. It doesn't say anything about that. It doesn't say anything about a get out of jail free card. So if you're a scientist, or if you're, say, I don't know, the security director of some super dark, wave special access program dealing with UAP, and that people have been murdered in the furtherance of the cover up, there's no get out of jail card for you to come forward and say, oh yes, I know that there were murders, or I participated in them, or I ordered them there. So it's very difficult you can't have a witch hunt on the one hand, because then people won't want to come out. But then again, you can't allow this kind of activity to go on with impunity behind closed doors, because then you're just allowing the situation to perpetuate. So I think that's a very, very difficult balancing act, and one that Congress will have to decide upon. Maybe they will at some point say, well, actually, this is so secret, and there's so many bad things have been done. We really do need to clean up, this aspect of American politics. But because we can't have people running around doing nasty things with impunity, but at the same time, we can't have it coming out in public with all the bells and whistles because of the huge harm that it will cause to the country. So I think that's a very fine balancing act on those two levels. How do you deal with the individuals? And how do you encourage them to come forward? But also, how do you deter such future behavior in the future?
Okay, so take somebody like Enigma Labs. We don't know who is working for them. We only know that they have certain advisors like Alex Dietrich, Rich Hoffman, Ben Hansen. We know that Alejandro Rojas is their PR person who shut down Twitter, that you cannot comment on anything they put on Twitter. We don't know who's taking their reports. We do know that a billionaire named Peter Thiel is funding them. We also know that they want to take all public reports and put them under the Enigma reign and title and logo, and they want to get rid of ufology. They want nothing to do with anybody in ufology. How do we react to a group like that is coming out and saying, we want your information, we want to collect it all, and we're not going to share it with you?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's going to be, that's nothing new really, though, is it? I mean, you've had companies working in secret to exploit technologies that they've had access to. Monetization isn't something not to be expected because it's human nature.
Are you in agreement with a group like Enigma Labs?
To be honest, I don't know too much about Enigma Labs specifically, but I think companies are in business to make money first of all, and that's part of our economic culture. So, but I'd like to see the public having access to far more. I don't think the non-threatening, non-national security aspects should be hidden from anybody. That's what I think.
So, in the overall stature of everything, it does come down to the fact that, the privatization of this really shouldn't be part of the communication or part of the future of ufology. Because the one thing that I do recall, and I've said this before as we got just under 2 minutes to go here, Frank, is Lou Elizondo once told me that one of the biggest mistakes the To the Stars Academy made was not using their biggest fans, i.e. ufology, to their advantage. And I'm not saying use them, but use them for support instead of pushing them away like Tom DeLonge did.
Yeah, that might be a valid comment. There's a very interesting article from Liberation Times written by a friend of mine, Helen McCaw. Now, she's a very, very smart lady. She was a senior analyst at the Bank of England, okay, and they're no slouches. But she's actually talking about sort of the monetization of it, and she asks, she says there might be price volatility, right, in the markets due to suspicion or accusation that specific companies have been given illegal competitive advantages from governments in terms of being given access to retrieved materials. So she's already asking those questions about monetization of it.
Do you think it's nefarious?
I think in terms of what companies do.
Yes.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's always been there've been a lot of cases of in large companies of corporate espionage, not just the espionage directed by foreign governments, but also corporate espionage, whether it's between car makers, aerospace and defense companies. There's always going to be that. That's going to be like at the extreme end of the competition. So that will always be nefarious to a certain extent. I used to do a lot of projects for companies where they were worried that another company was going to attempt a hostile takeover, for example, because they'd gained some unfair advantage in terms of insider information about the company that they wanted to acquire that they could leverage. So company activities are always going to be nefarious. But then there's nefarious, and then there's totally illegal.
We'll find out that and more. We'll take audience questions. Hour number 2 as well. Former paratrooper turned scientist and ufologist Frank Milburn joins us tonight. We got him for another hour here. Let's find out what happens in Ugly Ufology next. All right, Big Frank, I'm going to put you in the green room. I'm going to step away for a couple of minutes. We got just under 6 minutes, okay?
Okay.
Be right back. I still see you, Frank. Be right back, people. All right. Since some of you don't live in British Columbia as high up as I do, I figured I would share a picture because we're getting close to the longest nights or days of the year. So I figured I'd show you blue sky at 10 p.m. Blue sky. And the sun just starting to go down. Pretty cool, eh? See how it is at 11. Mac Geek, how you doing? Good to see you. And Maggie M10, thank you for joining us. And who else has joined us here late? James Weston, thank you for coming on in. And who else is joining us here? Super Knower, thank you for joining us. And we got just over 1 minute, guys. Bunch of vampires. That's right. Let's see. Want to say a big thank you to our super chatters tonight. Gizmo from my hometown. Eram, Jenny, Pammy, Area 51, Human Carl, Deb, Simon, and Catherine. Very much appreciated. Hi, Sensational Sherry. Good to see you. Deal you whoopoo. Welcome back, buddy. And don't forget, if you're new here, hit subscribe, ring that bell. So we are here 7 days a week for your listening entertainment. So thank you very much. Myth Say SS from Australia. Welcome to SOR Chat. Very much appreciate it. And don't forget, leave us a thumbs up, thumbs down, and after the show, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. And, of course, you can get some cool swag from our website, spacedoutradio.com. We got a great store there for you. So check it on out. Here we go with hour number 2, everyone.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you for joining us as we get into the UFO world with Frank Milburn. But before we bring Frank back in, we want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club, Raffish. Raffish is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Former British paratrooper, now ufologist, Frank Milburn is here with us tonight, and we are talking about the uglier side of ufology. Why won't they show us what we want to see? The UFO public has been pushed kind of to the side of everything going on in today's ufology. It's become more militaristic. It has become more about military endeavors, and you name it, the military's got it. Frank, welcome back.
Thanks, Dave. Cheers.
Frank, do you like the fact that this subject has become very militarized?
So in terms of what? In terms of that the military have control over these technologies?
Not only that, but I mean, let's face it. If you're an experiencer or I'm an experiencer, it means nothing. But yet, if a pilot or, let's say, somebody who is on the ground in Afghanistan or Iraq had seen something, because they're in the military, their point of view automatically gets shuffled right to the top, even though they may not be having as good of experiences as, say, other people who may not have military experience.
Yeah, that's true. The Spanish government in their UFO files, they actually quantified, the kind of the quality of observer. And as you say, a military pilot, was sort of like number one, and then it kind of went in descending order. But yeah, it's just very hard to quantify these experiences that people have had. I think that what you do get with pilots and professional military observers, that they are trained observers, and especially if they're using sensors that they've been trained to use as well. So whether they're seeing something visually or whether whether they're seeing it through the sensors that they've been trained to operate. I think that's why they've given more credence. And I mean, there's a lot, for a pilot, whether it's civil or military, there's a lot of money thrown at you, and there's a lot of responsibility on you, both for the aircraft and also your crew.
Okay, so at any point, do you see the public's experiences being able to have some impact in growing this story for knowledge?
I'm not sure in terms of unless their experiences can be repeated and quantified. For example, I don't know, somebody who's a serial abductee, if somehow you could get that into a laboratory type setting, into a scientific setting, and you could actually see what was happening to them and basically log it scientifically, because it's just very hard to quantify, and it's too subjective. I think that where experiences can make a difference is in continuing to press for more disclosure on the subject, because I think the whole idea of abductions and experiences, it's the new crash retrieval. It's the next frontier that certain people don't want us going beyond. They don't want to talk about abductions. They don't want to talk about what people have been experiencing. So that's another problem to it.
Okay.
I'm sure. So I was just going to say, I'm sure, right? I'm sure, because I would be, but I'm sure that in one of these deep dark programs, I'm sure that there is. I mean, people talk about my labs. I'm pretty sure there is. The military is going to be looking at abductions and what is happening from that perspective, because it's just too potentially dangerous and threatening not to do so.
Do you think the United States government or governments around the world know more about alien abductions than they are admitting to at this point?
Oh, I'd say 100%, just as they know a lot more about UAP and, the technologies behind them and the interactions that we've had with non-human intelligences. Yeah, they know a hell of a lot more about, abductions.
What do you think it is they know?
I think that they probably have a good idea who's conducting them. I think they probably have a good idea why. Same goes for cattle mutilations. Now you hear sort of various theories that it's to carry out scientific experimentation, or it's greys who are us from the future, and they need to synthesize protein because they live in a very low light environment, and most of the livestock has died off. So I would imagine that the military would have a pretty good idea, having looked at it, why abductions are happening, and also who's carrying them out, or what is carrying them out.
Do you think the government any government on this world may have a list of the people who have been taken?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. There's a very interesting new movie by David Paulides, Missing 411, the UFO connection. And he posited some very, very scary abduction experiences that people have had with hostile NHIs. And he speaks to a real life Fox Mulder, a real life FBI guy, who says that the government don't want you to know about what's going on with abductions with disappearances in parks, because it's too weird and spooky. And they just, don't want you in. They don't want the public to know about it. And if you look at David Paulides' work, I mean, he's had a very, very difficult time trying to get more information about missing people out of the Park Service. But I wouldn't be surprised at all. The government knows the identities of many people who've been taken.
Do you think that could lead to lawsuits? I mean, you imagine if you were taken and you found out the government knew about your abductions and did nothing about it? I mean, to me, that's a very personal aspect that I would like my government to talk to me about.
Yeah, especially if you knew that the government knew that you were being abducted, on a regular basis or repeatedly, and they did nothing about it, and they knew who was responsible for it, and perhaps that they had some kind of relationship with who or whatever was responsible for it. Then that definitely, I mean, it would be a similar deal if the government knew that there was an organized criminal gang operating in your neighborhood and coming around and kidnapping people out of their houses, but did nothing about it and looked the other way.
I want to ask you something about I can't get out of my head regarding David Grush. Okay,
Yeah.
I think he's one of the most credible voices that has come around in a long time, and people that I know on the inside who have vetted him say that he is very, very responsible and very much the man that he is portraying to be as a whistleblower regarding this subject. He said two profound statements that really, really got to me. Number one, that we do have crash retrievals and not just pieces. We have full intact craft. To me, that says that that craft that is in full did not crash at all. And it's almost like it's been to me that that craft was almost given to the military. Number two, he's the first one to bring up the idea of pilots. The TTSA since 2017 and beyond really did a good job at segregating UFOs from extraterrestrials. Yet Grush talking about the fact that we do have pilots, that would tell me that if we have intact craft that have not crashed, we may have the pilots alive as well. What do you know about this?
I've been told that in the past, the Brits have affected at least one crash retrieval, and that they discovered dead bodies of living organisms, living beings, sentient beings, and that they may have captured at least one alive. And but the craft was it had been forced down, but it wasn't completely destroyed, and at least one entity had survived the crash. I don't know about the seeding aspect of it. I mean, it could be like, I don't know, you're flying a helicopter and you get a load of warning lights going off on your panel, and so you land the helicopter before it actually crashes, right? So I'm not sure about the seeding. I just don't know enough. I think if you an NHI species and you wanted to seed craft to the US military or whoever, I mean, you just fly it to the nearest Air Force base, right? You wouldn't have to leave it in a field where somebody else could find it. You just fly it direct to them.
Do you think that just maybe as a gift that these extraterrestrials or whomever they are have maybe given the United States government or any government in the world a craft just to see?
It's possible. I don't know for sure. What I would have a problem with is anybody who's coming here for a long time knows how kind of really screwed up mankind is, or humankind. Kind of like giving a monkey a Kalashnikov. Yeah, do you really want to do that?
Well, we don't really know what kind of technology they are testing out at Area 51 either.
No, that's true. That's true. I think it's just a personal opinion, but I think if any technology were, sort of gifted to us humans, it would be for some kind of quid pro quo. Some kind of quid pro quo. Unless, whoever they are or wherever and whenever they're from, they like seeing, kids play with matches and they want to see us kill each other. I just don't know. I just don't know.
You sound hesitant to talk about that subject.
No, it's just there's just too many unknowns. Without knowing their motivations, I just find it hard to understand the idea of gifting. It would be like, when the Spanish went to Latin America. I mean, they didn't give they didn't give the locals cannons and steel swords and muskets. Yeah, they just proceeded to exterminate them and to enslave them. I just don't see why a technologically superior, more advanced civilization would be gifting sort of very, very dangerous technologies to humans, unless there were some kind of quid pro quo, and unless they were deriving advantage from it, or they were deriving some kind of scientific benefit from observing us with said technology. I just don't know, mate. That's too complex.
Or there is no threat.
Well, there is no threat, but I think I've always said take it on a case-by-case basis, and As I said, some people have very good experiences, some people don't. I would definitely consider it a threat if somebody came to my house and wanted to abduct me, or did abduct me and did stick needles into me. I would definitely consider that a threat. Definitely a flight risk if you have a near collision with a UAP. You've got an airliner full of passengers, and I'd say definitely a threat if if you're talking about nuclear silos, for example. I mean, if UAP flying over them had like Chinese stars, North Korean stars, or Russian stars on the fuselage, there wouldn't be any doubt that it was threatening. It's just because people assume that they're not. Lots of people were saying to me, "Oh yeah, you were too focused on the military aspect." It's like, well, yeah, duh. One, I was writing for a strategic studies think tank. Two, look at what Garage is saying, that there are instances where human beings have come to harm, and that NHIs, just because they're more advanced, we shouldn't necessarily attribute them with having a sort of a higher philosophical and moral kind of sense. Okay, I mean, after all, although this is anthropomorphic, colonization of the world, whether it's the Brits, the Spanish, the Portuguese, whoever, it was done brutally. We arrived in different places, and we forced our will on the locals by having superior technology. So I'd be very, 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 very careful about being involved with a more advanced technologically advanced civilization, because it doesn't necessarily mean that you're morally or philosophically superior. You could be quite the opposite. You could be so intelligent that you're actually completely detached from any kind of morality whatsoever, apart from not wanting to ensure your own destruction. But you could be completely detached. I wouldn't say maybe they see us like ants, but certainly as human beings treat animals. I mean, we don't seem to have any moral regard for animals in terms of how we treat them, how we eat them, how we exploit them for our own use, how we experiment on them. Why should anybody else to us?
Well,
I just think it'd be, as a former military man, I think it would be incredibly naive and incredibly irresponsible to automatically assume that all NHIs are, or non-human entities or non-human intelligences, incredibly naive and irresponsible to assume that they're all here to hold hands and sing Kumbaya. And that it doesn't hurt to be prepared. And in the meantime, hey, we've got plenty of terrestrial threats on Earth to deal with, whether it's China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, plenty of nasty, unsavory regimes to deal with already.
Frank Milburn is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio, the ugly side of ufology. I understand that, and I think you make great points, Frank, regarding the safety of humanity, but we're not acting like it's the safety of humanity. We're acting as individual countries with this extremely worldly problem. I mean, this is a subject that is going to affect every single person on the planet, whether you're military, civilian, whether you live in the jungles of Paris or the jungles of Brazil.
Yeah, I agree with you. But I just don't have that much faith in humankind's ability to cooperate. I mean, if you look at for example, the historical relationship between Russia, Soviet Union, and the West in the end of World War One. You had the Russian Revolution, okay, and then you had an intervention by foreign countries, including Britain, France, the United States, Japan in Russia's civil war. And so when the Bolsheviks came to power, they never trusted the West, they never trusted Japan, they never trusted France, Britain, the USA. But when faced with a greater danger, i.e., Hitler's Germany, then the Soviet Union and the Soviet Union and America and Great Britain, cooperated. But then, as soon as Hitler was defeated, it was back to the old suspicions that they had. I just don't have any faith in humankind's ability to get along. I think if there were like an imminent threat, like an Independence Day type scenario, then yeah, because you're faced with immediate obliteration, so you'd have to start working together. But human beings, they're pretty short term. I mean, in the early 1970s, right? Nixon and Kissinger, they got China to play ball with the States, against the former Soviet Union, because the former Soviet Union was considered to be a greater threat, by both China and America than China and America were considered each other. But now look at relations between the United States and China, not very good at all. So I'm very skeptical when it comes to international relations and humans' abilities to get on with each other.
If I throw a little woo in there,
Hmm.
do you think it is about also protecting secrets about any sort of technology that we do have, whether it's the secret space program, whether it is jump rooms to the moon or Mars, whether it's these black triangles, these TR3Bs that are flying around that are really ours? What's your thoughts?
Well, it's sort of like jumping 20 years into the future, that kind of Corey Good and sort of, Wilcox stuff, I don't have any time for whatsoever. And I think it has brought the whole sort of concept of ufology into great disrepute. And Corey Good's actually gone on record saying that it was BS. So I'd be very wary about those things. I'm not saying that there aren't portals. Maybe there is time travel capability. I don't know. But I'd just be much more wary of the kind of the wilder aspects of ufology, especially where people are capitalizing on it and making money out of people because they're effectively trying to hijack their aspirations, which is in a way is how I see Greer. I know a lot of people like him and everything. I think he did good work back in the day, but I basically see him and people like Wilcox and Corey Good. I see them as charlatans. They're just trying to make a buck. And trying to pander to people's aspirations and people's desires and people's beliefs, what people want to believe in. I mean, it's no different from the snake oil salesman, really. And I'd be very, very suspicious of those kind of people.
No, I agree with you when it comes to them. I do. I do agree that, when you're talking the charlatans of this field, that's really, where it begins with people like that. But there are people out there who do believe that maybe we do have more advanced technologies than what we are showing currently, in the world. I mean, take airplanes, for example. With the technology that we have, Boeing and Airbus are antiquated machines that we are still using to fly.
Well, I agree. Look, we always have things that are hidden. I mean, the so-called F-117, the stealth fighter, right? That had its debut flight in 1977. But it didn't actually become known to the world until 1991 in public when it debuted in the first Gulf War. And then a couple of years later, one got shot down over the former Yugoslavia. Actually, a very cunning operation by the Serbian Air Defense Command on the ground. That's another thing. But so it made its debut in 77. It wasn't used till 91. There are always going to be technologies that are hidden from us. I mean, how many people knew about the SR-71? How many people knew about the U-2, back in the day? I mean, very few.
So what do you believe is hiding then?
Well, there are certainly platforms the Americans have that are able, that are very secret, operated by, the US Air Force, which are able to, reusable, which are able to, exit the atmosphere, orbit, and do various tasks and return. I don't think there's some kind of secret space program sitting under a big kind of shelf of ice in Antarctica that nobody's ever heard about, just because of the infrastructure and everything it would just be very, very difficult. I believe. I think it's feasible to cover up UAP programs with aerospace and defense company, but to have a whole kind of a sort of a parallel but more advanced human civilization right under the noses of everybody, I think would be very, very difficult. I don't think it would be difficult for non-human intelligences because of, I don't know, cloaking technology or whatever it is, or if they're in a parallel dimension, they can just phase in and out of ours where they want to, so they can keep themselves much more to themselves. But I'm just very skeptical about the kind of wilder claims of ufology.
Okay, but some may say that somebody like David Grush talking about pilots from other planets being here is a little bit far out there.
Yeah, but the difference with Grush is that he's been heavily vetted, including by people that I spoke to. They said, "Oh yeah, I've spoken to GS-15s, and then the bloke's absolutely legit." So, I've got no doubt that he's absolutely legit. He's not like some kook at a fairground, talking rubbish, right? He's a real deal.
Love it. Frank, I'm going to get you to hold on there because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. This show is flying on by with ufologist, former British paratrooper, Frank Milburn. And when we return, we're going to get to your questions. We're going to find out what you want to ask Frank regarding this. You got to be in one of our chat rooms. or on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio to check it on out. What secrets bug you about this UFO topic? Let us know as we return with Frank Milburn on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. We'll see you on the other side. You're bringing some big-time game tonight, man. Big-time game.
Which is actually amazing because my brain feels big-time fried. My brain does definitely is telling me it's not on top form. But anyway, I'm having fun. But cheers.
I'm glad you're here, man. I'm glad you're feeling better.
Yeah, cheers, buddy. Man, so much good stuff coming out at the moment. It's really, really exciting. I've spent so much time the last couple of weeks just trying to get my head around like Grush and everything else. It's been really, really very, very, very interesting. And also the Canadian revelation. It's just something is always happening. It seems these days. Lots of things were happening in the previous 8 decades, but it just seems like since 2017, it's just like a roller coaster ride. It's really, really incredible. And yeah, so I don't lose the faith. I just really don't lose the faith at all. I think that things are the more people come forward and the more revelations we have. I mean, a couple of years ago, I was still skeptical about the Wilson doc and things like that, and it just seems that we're getting more and more coming out. It's just getting better and better. So I'm quite excited.
Yeah.
I'm quite excited.
I just want to let everybody know what I found out this evening regarding the Canadian portion of everything, that this bombshell of a report, as we are hearing. The letter from Member of Parliament Larry Maguire is 100% authentic. I was able to confirm that David Grush has talked with members of the Canadian government, including the sitting party, the Canadian Liberal Party, more than twice. And I was able to confirm that there are crash retrievals that have been recovered in Canada, namely in Northern Ontario, Northern Manitoba, and some out west, which I haven't figured out just yet. I was able to confirm that the letter was in order to try and put pressure on Defense Minister Anita Anand in order to get her to start speaking. Her government, with leader Justin Trudeau, is in a little bit of trouble right now, and this was more of a rocket to fire over the bow to kind of say, hey, we're not done this conversation yet. The public needs to know a little bit more. So that's what I'm hearing out of Ottawa as of this evening. Larry Maguire, not Jerry Maguire. Sorry. Jeffrey Green, how you doing? Jeremy Jones, how you doing? So, yes, from everything we are hearing, Grush has been talking very loudly with other governments, especially within the Five Eyes here, for the last at least year. Pretty cool. Pretty cool if you think about it. And there are more coming. Amy Woykin, how you doing? And yes, I have my Susie B. I have my rock upstairs. I do. I have my rock upstairs. It's in a special spot on my dresser. That's why you don't see it up here, because I got a special spot for it. No, Renee, I am not going to New Zealand to get eaten by sharks. No. Oh. It'll all be your questions here when we return, listeners. All your questions. Mundo Anomalo, pardon me. Yes, you are correct. Who's lying? Who's lying? Oh. Mr. Music, how you doing? Okay, Frank, we got about 30 seconds. Thank you to Gizmo, Iram, Area 51, Human Carl, Deb, Simon, Jenny, Pammy, and Catherine for the great super chats tonight. Thank you for the love. And don't forget to do some shopping at our store, spacedoutradio.com. If you're new here, hit subscribe, ring that bell. We want to hear from all of you. And good night, Mama Catherine. Mwah. We love you. And here we go. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate you tuning us on in. One reminder to all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Final time tonight with former British paratrooper, current ufologist Frank Milburn, height unknown, weight unknown, but looks, dirty deeds all the way. All the way. Frank, thank you for being here, my man.
Thank you, buddy, for having me.
I got a bunch of audience questions here for you. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's go with Iram. Frank, where would you invest money if you knew disclosure was imminent? Virgin Galactic, for instance, shot up after the extraordinary claims by David Grush.
Yeah, I'd be careful about space-based technologies. On the one hand, they'd be the sort of the rocket technology would be made obsolete, wouldn't it, if it came out that there was actually anti-grav and the Americans had working examples. But then again, as an analyst, you could look at it and say, well, Virgin Galactic or maybe Musk's organization, they'd be better resourced to be able to take advantage of those technologies. I'd be looking at certainly defense technologies. Anybody that I suspected or I knew definitely had access to their technology. And also as well, transportation infrastructure. You'd have to try and assess which companies would be most able to exploit the technology. Some people say that, it might be oil and gas companies simply because, they've got plenty of capital behind them. But I don't know. I have to think long and hard about that.
Mr. Eon from the UK as well is asking, in your estimation, Frank, who is currently the most credible person in the field of paranormal and ufology?
Lou Elizondo, Christopher Mellon. I'd say Brian Graves, people like that. I've also got a lot of time, obviously, for people at the SCU, people like Rich Hoffman, and also people like Keith Basterfield, who've been like really, really consistent and who've been saying the same thing and doing the same thing for years and years and years and years. I think people like that are really kind of sort of the rocks of the foundation of the sensible side of ufology.
Okay, what about people outside of the military effort?
Oh yeah, I think well again SCU. I think Gary Nolan is really, really great, both as a human being and also as a scientist. I think that he's made a tremendous contribution. I get a little bit upset because he's so open-minded and so kind of forthright, and yet there's so many scientists who are ostensibly big-brained, intelligent people, and who are still like very, very narrow-minded. So he's kind of an inspiration too.
Very cool. All right, let's continue on, and thanks again for your question. Let's go over to Travis. in Alberta. Frank, have you ever heard any stories of extraterrestrials in the war fields?
So in the war fields, you mean what? You mean like in Ukraine or in war in general?
War in general, let's say.
Well, yeah. I mean, Graham Rendell's done great work about, Foo Fighters. They've been very well documented. I think since, like we were saying, since the times of antiquity. I mean, the Romans used to call UFOs flying shields, and Alexander the Great, his army, apparently while they were having great battles, that they'd see, UFOs, UAPs, and also as well, if you look recently, I mean, Ross Coulthard did a podcast with Bryce, talking to a former British special operations veteran who'd served in Ukraine on the Ukrainian side, and they saw a fantastic UFO. So I think it's something that's been throughout history. UFOs seem to be attracted not just by nukes, but also by human military activity.
Let's continue on. Renee in New Zealand. Good to have you back, Renee. Mr. Milburn, what is your thoughts of USOs and underwater bases?
I'd say I don't know about bases, but certainly there's seems to be a long-standing interaction between USOs, UFOs in general, USOs, and water, whether it's collecting the water for some kind of purpose, or whether it's actually using water as a medium to travel and also maybe to live in. I think it's quite possible. I think there's so much that we don't know about the oceans. There's the old thing that everybody always says, we know more about the moon than we do about the surface of the moon than we do about our oceans. I think that's very true. So who knows what's down there, and who knows what's been down there for thousands and thousands of years.
And whether or not they even have a civilization down there. Yeah. Could be. We don't know.
Well, life came out of the sea, right?
Very true. Very true. Okay, let's move on to another question. This one from Super Crazy Movie Geek. Should we expect people to go to prison or to get full-time amnesty for UFO cover-up related crimes?
That's a really, really good question. I think there's a difference between what we would want to have potentially to happen to people in terms of punishment and what might be required in terms of, getting further disclosure or at least improving the quality of democracy. I've known of people who've been killed, and I'd certainly want justice for them. On the other hand, if you're going to be able to nail a number of other people, like, for example, think about a sort of a famous mafia case where you've got like a mafia supergrass will come out and he'll start naming names and he gets a reduced sentence, or, he gets a witness for protection program and an amnesty, but, you manage to nail like, 20 or 30 other guys and completely unravel an organization. I think that's something that will be down, that will be down for, people in Congress and also people, judges effectively to decide on. I mean, I'd like to see people getting punished for the most heinous crimes. Obviously, some people went along with it. Some people just stood by and watched it happen. Other people were heavily involved in it. I'd like to see people punished, but I think if you start with like a major witch hunt, then you're not going to get people coming forward, and you won't get into the nitty gritty of those programs. So in some cases, I think that it would be quite feasible for people to be offered amnesty, but not all. But certainly people who've got access and can name a lot of names.
What would give me an example of what it would be to create amnesty for a person? It would have to be more than what David Grush has stated.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, if you're going to be like a supergrass in a secret UFO program, if people have been, where people have been killed and terrible people's lives have been ruined, I mean, you'd probably want, if you were that person, you'd want a full amnesty, but you'd also want some kind of like enhanced witness protection, because you'd be making enemies, and you'd know exactly what these people would be coming after you, because you were one of them, right? So, and that's the problem that I talked about before with the NDNA. It doesn't give you a get out of jail. Well, it's not a problem, but it's the problem if you're going to come forward. It doesn't give you a get out of jail free card. And it doesn't say anything about like protecting you and protecting your security. I mean, look what's happened to Grush. I actually talked about this months ago, and I said, well, even if they don't, even if somebody doesn't take away your clearances, if you're working for like some aerospace and defense company, they could just send you to like, the arse end of nowhere and some, where you're not doing the same research that you were doing before, the research that that got you excited and animated in the first place. And your career just goes downhill hill from there. How do you actually prove then that you're being discriminated against? The company hasn't fired you. They haven't reduced your security clearance. They're just making you work on something else that isn't interesting. It's very, very complicated.
I can accept that. All right, let's continue on here. Let us go to Paul. Frank, what about non-terrestrial officers? Are they around this planet?
Are we talking about like non-human entities, or are we talking about?
I would say NHI that are currently involved potentially with governments.
I think that's very, very possible. I mean, if you want to go full on David Jacobs, David Jacobs, who is a very, very interesting guy, and also, I mean, other researchers, it's quite feasible. And I've been told by various people that they operate amongst us with impunity, and that if you were sitting across a coffee table from one of them, you wouldn't know the difference. Now, whether they're alien as in another species, if you're talking David Jacobs, that's been progressively hybridized to pass itself off physically as a human, but with very enhanced mental faculties and ESP and all the rest of it, or whether it's, as I've heard, hello cat, or whether it's like us from the future, operating on Earth, conducting some kind of timeline operations, and that it's actually humans, time travelers, who are operating amongst us. I don't know. I keep an open mind to all the theories, but I believe that there's either humans or non-humans operating amongst us, and they look just like us, and they can pass themselves off for us.
Oh, isn't that nice? Where's them reptilians when we need them? Remember the TV show V?
Oh, that's fantastic.
I think that's a very realistic approach to things when it comes to V, that's for sure. All right, let's go over to Mr. Eon. Frank, did you see anything odd during your tours of duty?
Not personally, no. But let's just say it became very obvious because I spoke to people who had experience, specifically pilots. So that was kind of what regenerated my interest in the topic. I mean, that was many years ago. But when military pilots are telling you that they've had specific experiences, and it's very, very compelling, especially when you're working with these people. So,
by the way, Paul, you just answered his question. He says, "Awesome, thanks. Expected generic answer, epic." You didn't give him one. Good. All right, I don't quite understand this question, but considering where it's coming from our man Sovereign, it doesn't surprise me. Frank, what do you think of airships that bank left? I don't know what that means.
I don't really either, to be honest.
They all bank left. There. Boom. Let's go to Simon in Australia. Frank, oh yeah, we already had that question. Thank you, Simon, for reposting it. Let's go to Amy, West Coast. Who is not outside of the military effort? Like, who do you trust who's not part of it? Like, let's take this. I'll switch this question around a little bit, because you deal with a lot of people who are outside the government effort, whether it's Bob McGuire, whether it's Nicole Sackich, whether it's Grant Cameron or whomever. Who's doing it right?
Well, I mean, I've got respect for a lot of different people, some of whom I mentioned already. I mean, I kind of got my interest reignited when it was before 2017, and sort of reading Richard Dolan's great works on UFOs and the national security state. Now, we've had our differences on certain topics. We don't agree on everything. But what I do like about Richard is he does ask very, very very, very difficult questions. And I mean, he's not, to my knowledge, affiliated with the military or the dark state. We don't necessarily share the same politics, but he asks very, very pertinent questions. he sort of doesn't leave any rock unturned, and that's what I like about him. And I like people like that who leave no rock unturned, because we should be asking questions in an intelligent way, and trying to stay away from, you know, the decades and decades of this kind of baggage that ufology has built up, and you know, these kind of beliefs that people spout just because it's been passed down from generation to generation without actually applying any kind of like logic or real world logic to it. There's always going to be like a certain amount of woo and having to have belief in you know, in phenomenology, but as far as we can, let's keep it sensible and let's ask the right questions, you know, the logical questions, and let's try and make it as scientific as possible as well.
What are the right questions we should be asking?
Well, I think what we are, you know, what does the military have? What are they hiding? You know, how can this benefit, like, you know, mankind and the rest of us? You know, what's so much has been hidden from us so far. What is being hidden now? You know, what can we trust? Who can we trust? You know, to help us understand what's going on. Just, you know, keeping an open mind, and I say having a certain skepticism from certainly from what we get from the government, but also as well being willing, not just shutting our mind off and going, oh, everybody who's worked for the government or everybody who's worked in intelligence is bad, because obviously there's a lot of very, very honorable and good people who do that kind of work. So we need to be skeptical and questioning, but we also need to keep our minds open, so that when somebody like, you know, David Grush comes forward, you know, we're not just poo-pooing it. We're actually giving the guy an opportunity to say what he's got to say. I mean, look what happened to Elizondo. It was very, very difficult for him. And I think, you know, eventually he just got fed up with it. He said, look, I can't deal with it. He couldn't deal with the opposition that he was getting from within, like, you know, the military intelligence industrial complex, and he couldn't deal with all the crap that he was getting, you know, on social media. And you know, fair enough to the guy, you know, fair play to him. So I think we need to give people an opportunity to come out and to inform us and to speak, which is why I think Gary Nolan is very good like that, because he's a scientist. He's he's worked with you know, this is the military industrial complex, but you know, he's a scientist and people can see his integrity, and I think people like him are very, very important.
All right, let's continue on with our questions here. We got about 7 minutes to go, and let's go to Super Crazy. If we had to fight a war against ATs, is it a foregone conclusion that humans will lose, or do you think we have a chance?
Well, it depends who or what they are, what their intentions are, what their capabilities are. But I wouldn't automatically assume that humans will lose. There've been cases in history where, you know, technologically inferior humans, you know, defeated technologically superior humans. It wasn't all like the Spanish going to Mesoamerica. If you look at 1878, the Battle of Isildwana in Zululand, when the British marched in a column of 1,800 blokes, thinking that they were just going to roll straight through the Zulus or roll straight over them, and they got the shock of their lives. So there are cases of tech inferior, you know, species, but it really depends. I mean, I'd have to do an assessment, knowing a lot more about you know, who or what we were up against. But I think the fact that we're developing, we're looking at crash retrievals and we're trying to develop the technology, I think there will come a time where we crack the technology. So therefore, I don't think that it is a foregone conclusion. But I mean, it really depends what kind of conflict as well. I mean, are we just talking about the odd, you know, incursions into airspace, or are we talking about, you know, stopping them if it's them abducting people? So if you're talking about a scenario of like an alien invasion, I just really don't know. I'd have to know more about the capabilities, you know, Independence Day type scenario.
Pammy wants to know, what, if any, connection do USOs have with missing submarines?
That's a brilliant question, and one that I've often wondered. I mean, you hear kind of like sort of theories. I don't know. I would imagine in the vast majority of cases, submarines go missing just because, you know, it's a dangerous environment to operate in. You know, like you're operating at pressure, at depth, with gases, so that immediately is dangerous. But we've heard a lot from the Russians over the years that there's a lot of USO activity around submarines, and that Russian submariners were regularly picking up USOs. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it could be the same kind of collision risk that you have in the air, that, you know, with USOs, you know, moving very, very fast in the water, that they can cause a submarine to veer off course and maybe, you know, lose control or crash into something.
All right, let's continue on. Random guy wants to know, Frank, what are the best cats to cuddle?
Anyone
We know you
really.
love your cat. We
Yeah.
know you love your cats, Frank.
Any cat really, man. They're all cute. They're all cute. I don't
How many,
know.
how many you got now?
I've got 8.
I got 3.
Yeah. I've got a big garden though, so they're well happy. So, and trees and stuff for them to climb around in.
Excellent. Let's go over to Pammy. What, if any, connection do you... Okay, we've already asked that. Please do not repeat your questions. I will get to them. All I needed is once, guys. And Mike is asking, what if someone is the one among us but does not know that for context?
Wow, you mean like they're a non-human entity, but they don't realize they're one? Wow, that would be a major head screw, wouldn't it? I suppose they'd have to figure it out sooner or later, maybe, that they weren't us or similar to us, but they had some differences. That's a really head screw question, that one, but I like it.
Final question from our audience tonight comes from Christian. Do we know who's harassing whistleblowers? Is it people in the DOD, SAPs, or men in black, or all of the above? Pinpointing who the suits are is more challenging.
Yeah, I mean, my working theory is, and I've had probably 6 or 7 different scientists come to me, some of them asking for security advice as well. One of them was killed. I've documented, you know, a lot of harassment, for everything from directed energy weapons to kidnapping, to waterboarding, to threats against family and friends, to breaking an entry, to overt physical surveillance, to covert surveillance, to electronic surveillance, you know, technical surveillance. My working theory is that the people being harassed, it's being done on behalf, it's some special operations units that are operating. It sounds really woo-woo, really out there, but they're operating on behalf of these USAPs or these aerospace and defense companies. They're plausible, not liability, because they're not actually part of the government, but they have kind of like an official top cover from people who do have access to and oversee these programs. I originally thought that it was very much Chinese and Russian espionage, but then once I started putting like all the dates and the facts and calculating physically the amount of resources that you'd have to have on the ground to be able to harass people and your groups of people over a prolonged period of time, it became clear to me that it would have to be somebody who was operating with sanction from some part of the US government.
Do you see more whistleblowers coming out? Because for the number I've heard is there's another 8 to 10 guys like David Grush who have maybe currently testified or are planning to testify regarding the UFO whistleblowers.
I do, yeah, but I think a lot would depend, as I said earlier. I think a lot would depend on how the DOD IG, how the DOD IG and how the IC IG look at Grush's complaints. I think that if that goes well, and assuming that something really nasty doesn't happen to him, and I touch wood, I hope it doesn't, that then you will see more people coming out. But I don't think to RO. I think they'll want to go direct to Congress, or they'll go an IG route or something like that. But I hear that people just don't have faith in RO because it's kind of like a toothless tiger. And I don't blame Kirkpatrick either. I think he's kind of between a rock and a hard place. He probably doesn't, he's probably doing pretty well financially as well, and he doesn't want to give that up. And operationally, he reports to Undersecretary of Defense for Security and Intelligence. In terms of administratively, he reports to that office, but operationally, he reports to ODNI. So he's kind of between a rock and a hard place, and he probably doesn't want to upset the apple cart, as we saw during, the hearing when Gillibrand was asking, well, do you need further powers, and what do you need, and asking him like, have you been setting up this? Have you been setting up that? No, they're working on it. I haven't been given authorization yet. So I think he's been in a rock and a hard place. So I think people will There will be more whistleblowers, and they will come forward so long as the test bed of Grush works.
Frank Milburn, thank you for coming back on Spaced Out Radio. I know when news breaks again, we can count on you to be here once again. Coming up in hour number 3, Steve Stockton's Among the Missing story. Then the lovely Robin McCrae talks a Bigfoot woo with us. We'll be right back. Great job, Frank. Thank you.
Cheers, brother. Thanks very much. I'm going to go and get my head down now, if that's all right.
You go. We'll talk
all right,
soon.
Brother. Hey, it was a real honor, mate. Thank you.
Much love, my friend.
Much love. Much love, mate.
Take care. Bye-bye. Love him. You know who else I love? Robin McCrae.
Hey, sweetheart.
McCrae. How are you, dear?
How are you? Always so good to see you.
Do you want to sit in the green room?
Yeah, I'm all good.
All right, all of you can talk to Robin. I'll be right back.
Dave's doing his Dave business. Go on the chat so I can see what everybody's up to. Because I can't see it when he leaves me back here. Hey, Mike. Hi, Renee. How are you? Pammy Smith, hi. So good to see everybody. You guys are so awesome. Sovereign, yay. Susie, hi. I was bored to see everybody all week. It's going to suck when Duke comes back. It'll be good because everybody will get to see Duke again, but I'll miss everybody. So I hope everybody's doing good. We're getting massive storms here. So I'm hoping I keep my service the entire time we're doing this. Wait for Mr. Scott to arrive. I can't see what anybody says, but I can see it on the chat, so that's good. Mike, we are too. It is literally downpoured here. I'm building an ark for all of my animals in the cryptids. So the ETs are on their own. They can get their own ark. But yeah. Hi, Lara. You get some rest, sweet girl. We'll talk again later. Is it, Renee, it's cold there? We have got nothing but high heat and high humidity and enough rain to fill the oceans. It's terrible. It's like lightning, thunder, a ton of rain. My entire front yard and backyard is underwater, and all you hear are frogs. It's like the invasion of the frog people. Hi, Paul. Sure, Mike, you can ask anything. So, yeah, it's crazy here. I think they're getting it all through Georgia and Florida, too. Last I heard from the people I know there. It's just been nothing but downpours. You okay, Pammy? Hi, Maggie. How are you? Like I said, I can look on my phone so I can see what everybody puts. I just can't see it on the screen, so I'm not ignoring anybody. I'm just looking at the phone. Renee, it's been really bad. I've lived in South Carolina 5 years. I've never seen rain like this. Pammy, I'll be praying for you, sweet girl. It's just, I don't understand this crazy weather, but it seems to be everywhere. It's like, it's not just one spot. Texas is getting a heat wave like they've never had before, so it's pretty bad. But yeah, it's bad. I was worried I wasn't going to be able to make it tonight because I was afraid I wouldn't have service, but it let up. Do you have any proof of the Bigfoot pic videos? Which videos, sweetheart? Like I had, Delilah, I have, like my photos because I took them. As far as some of the other pictures and videos, if they're not mine, I have no way to prove anything. I have my own opinions on which ones I think are legit and which ones aren't. But as far as proof, I don't have that kind of proof. Mine I know are real because I'm the one that took them. Yeah, Chris, once you guys get it, you'll get it hot. It's miserable here. Like the humidity has been so unbelievably bad. Like if you even go outside, you can't breathe. You come inside, you've got central air and it's great. You walk outside and it takes your breath away. Yeah, I don't think I need the pictures either, Mike, or probably a lot of other people. I get why people want proof with pictures and footage. Like if they haven't had the experience, of course you would want that. Unfortunately, that doesn't always pan out that way. Aha, he's back.
I am back.
You are back. We've been talking.
Good.
See, if I pick up my phone, I can see what everybody says. I can't see it on the screen. So I keep telling him I'm not ignoring anybody if I'm looking down. It's just that way I can see pics. Pammy, he's fine. He's doing okay. They're pretty resourceful in the heat. A lot of them they have underground tunnels and they'll go there. Oh, excuse me.
You got
Allergies.
About 1 minute.
Okay. So yeah, he'll be okay, Pammy. They go in the underground tunnels and it's relatively cool down there, I think, for them. And so I think that helps a lot. Or they get in the nearest water they can get in.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
So how are you, my favorite Dave?
I am doing great. I'm sore. I'm extremely sore.
Bill, you were really hurting last week.
Yeah, I got to get to a chiropractor.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to find in this town, but like sleeping on the most uncomfortable couch the last few days, it's hard. Hold on, Robin. Here we go.
Okay.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. What do you got for us, Clam? Raffish. Raffish is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. It is that time of the night where we kick off hour number 3 with another amazing story from Steve Stockton and Among the Missing.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Among the Missing YouTube channel on Spaced Out Radio. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'm about to take you on an unbelievable journey of people just like you. Their stories and encounters will haunt us on Among the Missing. Hello, my wandering wonders. Steve Stockton here with you again. ATM on SOR. Tonight, I'm going to bring you the story of the red-headed hitchhiker of Rehoboth. Now, the red-headed hitchhiker of Rehoboth is a legendary figure that has been haunting the roads of Massachusetts for several decades. The story goes that a young man with flaming red hair was killed on Route 44 in the 1970s while hitchhiking along the highway. Since then, there have been numerous sightings of the hitchhiker's ghost along the same stretch of road. According to the legend, the red-headed hitchhiker appears to be an ordinary young man with red hair wearing jeans and a t-shirt. He's said to be a friendly and polite hitchhiker who often asks for a ride to a nearby town or city. However, once he's inside the car, strange things begin to happen. Many people who claim to have picked up the red-headed hitchhiker report feeling an eerie sense of unease or dread. Some say that the temperature inside the car drops suddenly, while others report hearing strange noises or feeling a sudden gust of wind. Some people even claim to have seen the ghostly image of the hitchhiker in their rearview mirror or sitting in the back seat of their car. There are many different versions of the story of the red-headed hitchhiker, but one of the most popular involves a group of college students who were driving back to their campus late one night. As they drove along, they saw a young man with fiery red hair hitchhiking by the side of the road. Feeling sorry for him, they decided to give him a ride. At first, everything seemed normal. The hitchhiker was friendly and chatty, and the students thought they'd made a new friend. However, as they drove further along the highway, things started to take a sinister turn. The temperature in the car dropped suddenly, and the hitchhiker grew increasingly agitated. Suddenly, he vanished into thin air, leaving the students terrified and shaken. Over the years, there have been many reported sightings of the red-headed hitchhiker, and his legend has become a popular part of folklore. Some people believe that the ghost is a restless spirit, doomed to wander the highways for all eternity. Others think that he may be a warning or a sign of some kind, a harbinger of danger or misfortune. Despite the many stories and legends surrounding the red-headed hitchhiker, there's no concrete evidence to suggest that he ever really existed. Skeptics believe that the legend may have been invented to scare travelers and promote tourism in the area. Quite a trick if you could do both. Others think that the ghostly hitchhiker may be a product of the collective imagination, a shared hallucination, or even mass hysteria. Whatever the truth may be, the story of the red-headed hitchhiker of Rehoboth continues to fascinate and intrigue people to this day. Whether he's a real ghost or simply a figment of our collective imagination, his legend serves as a reminder of the power of storytelling and the enduring appeal of the supernatural. All right, Wandering Wonders, there you have it. Thanks again for listening to ATM on SOR. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'll see you a little further down the trail.
And we love it when Steve is here, giving us a great story each and every night to kick off hour number 3. If you want more, head on over to his YouTube channel, youtube.com/Among the Missing, in order to listen. Make sure you hit subscribe as well. All right, from the missing to the mountains. Where's Sasquatch hiding? It's the Cryptid Report. Super Duke, the Cryptid Report with Super Duke. Filling in for a vacationing Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio, Robin McRae is back.
Hey, you.
One of my favorite people in this field. How are you, my dear?
I am great. I love being here. Number one, I just adore you anyway, which you know that. That's a given. But you have like the most awesome people in your chat. I love them. I look forward to them every week.
Well, you know what? We appreciate you filling in for Super Duke all summer long,
sure.
Hanging out with us and us misfits of the night.
Hey, what else am I going to do at 2 a.m.? I mean, really?
Well, some people would appreciate sleep, but not
you.
Well,
I don't sleep very often, so that's pretty good. It works out good.
You much prefer the power of radio in the middle of
Absolutely.
the night.
Absolutely. I do. I really do. So I love it.
Perfect.
So it works out good.
So you are somebody who gets a lot of cryptid reports.
Yeah.
What's happening these days? What's going on?
I'd like to say it's something different than what it's been the last 6 months, but I mean, everybody, they're hopping and a popping. Like, people are contacting me every day. I get up and I probably have 30 to 50 messages on Messenger of people that are talking to me about, they've seen this one or they've seen that one, or they're finding it in a picture. And it's just amazing. Like, they are loud, they are proud, they're out there more than they've ever been. Like, I say that all the time, but it's the God's honest truth. And I think, people are out and more active, and so they're running into them more. And I don't think they're as fearful as they always have been. And I think that maybe in certain places, I because we get the kill groups that are out there that we dislike with every fiber of our being, and they're out there a lot. But really, they're a lot more active. They seem to be making more contact with our kinds of people. You know, I know they sure haven't slowed down much around here.
So
You know,
when they are contacting people, how are they doing that? What's happening?
vocals or gift. I mean, they leave gifts just as much as we do. And then you have visuals where people are seeing them, you know, looking out from or behind a tree, or they're out in the woods and they're crossing paths and they're like, you know, I just saw this one down here. Blaine Tyler, fabulous researcher out of Canada. He got the most amazing picture. And I don't know if he took it today or yesterday. I know I saw it today. All he's doing is sitting on a log and there's one standing behind him. It's like they follow him everywhere. So I think that people miss a lot because we're trained to believe they're not there. So like if you're out in an area, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the woods because we've seen them in the city multiple times, but they're more prominent obviously in the woods. But because your mind is trained in, you know, that they're not going to be there anyway, people don't notice. So when they become aware of them and they are more inclined to believe that they're around, it's just amazing what they see. And where there's one cryptid, there's more. You get the ETs, you get the other cryptids, you know, and they all just kind of like hang around each other. They all have that energy that they radiate and they're all drawn to it. And I don't think it's going to let up anytime soon. I will say that. Whether related or not, it's not going to let up anytime soon. They don't migrate. You know, they'll send hunters out from the clan to, you know, follow an elk herd or wherever the food source is. But the regular clan is going to stay centered where they always have. The only time they actually leave is it's not any different than when our people decide they don't like an area and they want to move and, you know, they're going to go somewhere else. They'll do the same thing, but migrate, they don't. So I think people are surprised when they do see them. I think that a lot of people don't say they've seen them because they don't want to be ridiculed. They don't, you know, they don't want that stigma that sometimes can go along with it. So if you're seeing, you know, like 1,000 people state that they've seen them, there's probably another 3,000 that are not coming forward.
Is Sasquatch allowing these people to see it, or are they just having random encounters?
I want to say more often than not, they're allowing it. There are some that are actually, you know, it's an accidental sighting, and that does happen. More times than not, it's because they're allowing it. You know, they're actually highly intelligent. They're as busy watching us as we are watching them. And I have a friend that is a truck driver that gets the most incredible pictures. And he's at the truck stops, you know, and this is where he's getting these fantastic pictures. I mean, they're just awesome. And he's at truck stops. He's working, he's driving a truck. So he's at these truck stops because they've come there and they're watching our people. You know, we're out there watching them. So I guess why in the world can't they be watching us?
What is their curiosity with humans?
I think it's similar to ours. You know, it's a different rate. I mean, we're all a type of people, you know, whether it's accepted by everybody or not, it's the truth. You can't change it. But we're different cultures. It's fascinating. It's not any different than if you were wondering what it's like, you know, for people in China because you're curious about that culture and you go there. It's not any different for them. Number one, we're very untrustworthy. We kill what we don't understand. So they want to keep an eye on us for their own safety to begin with. I mean, that's first and foremost. The next thing is they're curious about our culture. Our culture is vastly different than theirs. So they're really intrigued as to why do we do the things we do? You know, a lot of times they'll call us the silly hairless humans because they can't understand why we do the things that we do, much like we do with them.
Okay. So are they starting to get more curious of us, or are they just being more aware that, you know, since COVID, more people are spending more time in the forest now rather than making those treks to, say, Mexico or Hawaii or Florida or over to Europe or wherever it may be?
Honestly, I don't think they're more curious than they were before. I think that because it's becoming more comfortable for lack of a better word, for people to understand about them and become aware that these things actually really do exist. So I think we're just being more aware of what was already there. I mean, I know from my own experiences since I was a child, everywhere I looked, well, not everywhere, but, a large portion of places I was at, they would step out of the tree line. And then if somebody was with me, they would see them as well as myself. So, but I never knew they didn't exist. For me, that was just the normal. But because most people don't really, and I'm not talking about your viewing audience, I'm talking about a lot of people out there don't accept the fact that they exist. So if you don't think it exists, why are you looking for it? So now it seems to be, even from 10 years ago, it's more mainstream that these things are really out there. People are encountering them as we spread out more and population grows and we're in their areas, and then we're noticing they're coming into ours. And so I think it's just more noticeable now than it ever has. I don't think that since I've been around, I've noticed that, they've backed off. I think they've always just been, there and upfront about it. I just think that we just were never paying attention the way we are now.
Okay. So the idea that we have this interest on both sides happening.
Yeah.
Are we going to, or how does someone put themselves in that predicament to actually see one?
Well, I think, when I get people that contact me and they're like, I want to try to have an experience, and I'm always telling everybody, careful what you wish for. Because when you get that experience, some people are mentally ready for that experience where others aren't. But if you really, really want to, and you want to go out in the woods, you're going to go out in the woods with an open heart, a pure heart. They read your intent. They know your intent better than you do. So if you're going out there thinking, I'm going to bag one of these things, number one, you're insane. Because for every one you see, there's probably 30 more there. But if that's the intent you have and you go out there, you're not going to get an experience. You might get chased out of the woods, but that's going to be the only thing you're going to get. You go out there with a pure heart because you actually want to see what it's like. Don't be intrusive. Go out in those woods. Look and see if you see stick structures. That's the first sign. See if you see any footprints. Or just go out there. Quit chasing them. For the love of Pete, quit chasing them. Go out there. Park yourself out. Talk. Laugh. Have a bonfire. Have a cookout. Let them come to you. When you let them come to you, it puts them more at ease because they like to be in control of the situation. They're total control freaks. So you're not being invasive. If you get out there, you could inadvertently go into their home where their children are, their families are. They are more protective of their children than we will ever hope to be. And it becomes a very dangerous situation. Or you can be interrupting them while they're hunting, or a million different factors play in. But if you go out and you see an area that might have structures in it, don't mess with their structures. It's their form of communication. It's not just there because they like artwork. Leave the structures alone. Be respectful. Stay on the outskirts of those structures. Sit there, play music. They love music. Do whatever you're going to do. And they love it when you're laughing and you're talking because it raises your energy. Let them come to you. When you put yourself in those kind of situations, you would be very amazed as to how much more beneficial those experiences happen. When you go out there, you want a positive experience. You don't want a negative. If you get a negative experience, you might be done. That might be the only experience you're going to have, unless you've actually hurt one, and then they're going to hound you till the day you die. If you have a positive experience, now you're building a relationship with them, and that will last you a lifetime. And it takes time. Nothing happens overnight. Once in a while, you get lucky and it moves quickly depending on the individual. In your case, you are building a solid relationship with that clan that you're working with because you went out there. They know what to expect from you. They know where you're going to be. You're not running through the woods chasing them down like they're a pack of dogs. And they are coming more to you when you are out there. It's okay to walk around and look in the woods and see what's out there. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's a difference in that and becoming so intrusive that you're literally chasing them down. And just for the record, you can have as many experiences during the day as you can at night. There's no reason to be out there invading their homes in the middle of the night. I have seen at least 3 times more in daylight than I have at night. I mean, have I seen them at night? Yeah. when I was in Michigan, they would cloak and they would come up behind me and they would pat my hair, put their hand on my shoulder, and do the whole counting coup thing. But I have seen more in broad daylight. You're going to get more when you're not intrusive. Go out there with a pure heart. Go out there and be engaging, and let them come to you before you start going to the very back of the woods and get yourself involved in a situation that you may not be prepared to handle. It's just like if you're at home. Do you want somebody to come up in your yard and come knock on your door, or you want somebody to just open your door and walk in while your family's sitting there? And you don't know who these people are and they're strangers. You will do whatever you have to do to protect your family. We cannot expect anything less than that from them.
So what kind of sightings are people having right now?
A lot of them are just the visual where they've seen him in the woods. They've seen him peeking around a tree, getting a lot of the wood knocks communications. We still get people that hear the howls a lot. Not a lot that I'm being told, they're not walking up and shaking anybody's hand. I mean, that happened to Igor in Russia. It doesn't happen a lot. But we're getting a lot of visuals where we are seeing people that are seeing them more than we ever had before, which is really good. When you get these visuals and they're watching you watch them, that's a positive thing. You're not putting fear in them. You're not chasing them down. They're allowing you to see them, or they may be moving through the trees around you and you're getting a glimpse of them. These are all really good things. And it seems to be more people are getting those visuals than they are anything else. I've had a lot of people talk about, wood knocking back and forth with them, and they're getting a lot of responses with the wood knocks. I think that they want, not all of them, but the ones that do want that contact really do want to find a safe way to communicate with us. They can speak whatever language you're speaking as well as telepathically, and they have their own language. But they want to do it from a safe place. Our people kill what we don't understand, and they know that. And so, they have to find out your intent. Is there anybody that followed you there? There's this whole thing that they deal with. And I think that they just like having those visuals. They like to watch us, and they love to watch us when they're watching them.
Should we initiate contact?
That's a hard one. I think it depends on where you're initiating contact at, to be very honest. The ones that want contact with us are in the woods that are near us, where, we go out there and we can have that contact. The ones that really don't like our people or don't want to know anything about our people, they go up high in the mountains. They go in these out places where, Outer Banks, where our people usually aren't there. They do that for a reason. They don't do it because it's easier for them. They do it for a reason. They don't want that contact. But when you get to myself, I live in the woods. I do have some neighbors, not a ton, but I do have neighbors. I have no problem getting contact. And my neighbor on the one side of me is getting contact, whether she wants it or not. It's all been friendly. But they're in not a residential area, it's suburban, but
Oh, Robin, you froze on us there for a quick moment. So we will just wait for her computer to come on back here. Robin McCrae. There she is. We got her.
Yeah.
Now. We got you.
Sorry. It may do it again because it's just the weather. But they're coming into areas where there's more residentials there. If they're coming into these areas where are more populated with our type of people, they're fully well aware they're going to interact. It's when you go into these deep cave systems, it's when you're chasing up and down a mountain, or you're going out so far out that there's no chance that there's any of our people are ever going to be there. And those are the ones that just really don't want that contact. The ones that do are going to move closer to us.
Okay. I got so many questions over this, and I'm going to see if our audience has any questions for you as well. But we got another half an hour to go in the Cryptid Report with Robin McCrae. Should we make contact with these creatures called Sasquatch or anything else living in the forest around? Little people?
Yep.
Dogman? Gnomes? Spaced Out Radio's Cryptid Report continues with the legendary Robin McCrae when we return. All right, we are clear. Mark G from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. How you doing? Mike Arrington, good to see you. Who else has jumped in here? Nikki in Seattle, thank you for coming on in. Excuse me. Oh, I hate it when I yawn and cough at the same time. Daniel, good to see you.
Oh.
Do not start yawning.
You yawned first. I blame you.
Oh, I'm going to blame you for that one because there's no way it was me. All right. DD Galaxy, good to see you. The lovely and talented Xochitl Paez Richards. Yep, she took her hubby's name. Remember she was just a little innocent Xochitl Paez. Yeah, she all grown up now. Oh, nice to see them leave the roost every now and again. Let's see here. Spacey Tree, good to see you.
Dogface is there. Maggie's there.
Good old Simone from Australia. Wendy Guizdala, how you doing? Wendy.
Yeah, you've got some great people that come into your chat.
Yeah, they're good people. They're good people.
There's always going to be a few, but most of yours are always really nice.
Yeah, except Renee in New Zealand, who literally disappeared on me for like 3 years, but has returned successfully tonight.
You know, once you have the Dave, you just can't give it up. Hey, Dogface, how are you, sweetie?
Oh, my back is so
Sharon. Hi, Sharon.
Anything to do with Sasquatch or cryptids there, Sovereign Farts? Fart hard while you're typing, buddy. Fart hard while you're typing. Oh. So, in the last couple of weeks, while I was going through this stuff with my mom, I slept in my mom's bed. And my mom's mattress was about as hard as concrete.
Oh.
And so when more family arrived for the funeral and everything, I had to sleep like 5 days on the most uncomfortable couch.
Oh my gosh.
So my back feels like it is twisted and turned, and it will not crack. It will not release. I'm trying everything, like, you find a doorway corner to try and, get that knot out. Can't do it. I've tried hot showers, and nothing is releasing it. And I am to the point where, like, my arms feel like they're starting to go numb from it.
You have got to go into a chiropractor. Like, you absolutely have to.
I know.
I mean, you have so much free time between work and the show. You never have free time, but you really need to get in there.
Oh, I know. I'm going to call tomorrow, and I'm going to beg. I'm just going to beg.
Yeah, you have to. You have to. And then I know people that put like the tennis ball in a sock and you roll around on the tennis ball. That never worked for me. I try. I know people. I had a friend of mine that used to get a rolling pin and put it on the floor and then, lay in the rolling pin. That would be too harsh for me. I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that.
Uh,
I will tell you though, if you have willow bark extract and ground ginger,
not
there
here.
is a recipe that the Bigfoots gave me, and that works really good on muscle aches and pains and fibro and arthritis.
Well, I will try anything right now because
I will have to send it to you.
Hello, Body Tech. Yes, I have tried the warm bath as well, and it just will not release. And
have you tried that? It's got Epsom salts in it. It's, what is it? Dr. something or another, and you put it in the bath, and it's all Epsom salts.
Yeah, I just got Epsom salts for Father's Day.
Oh, did you try that?
Yeah, my problem is I can't have a bath at like 12:30 at night because, well, maybe I will, depending on it. Oh, I do have Dr. Ho. I do have Dr. Ho pads. I just can't reach that spot in my back. I'm the only one home right now.
Oh, wow.
Hold on, Robin. Here we go. We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Here we go. Robin McCrae is with us for the Crypted Report, talking all things about communication. Should we try and reach out and meet, shake hands, greet, and maybe give a hug to Sasquatch? Robin, your thoughts?
I think they don't need us for a thing. Like, they really don't. They've done just fine by themselves for over 15,000 years. They're going to do fine long after we're gone. However, we are sharing this planet with them, and I think they have come across some of the lowest forms of humanity as far as how they've been treated. And I don't think it would kill us to be nice to them. There are some that are bad. Don't get me wrong. I'm never going to tell you that all of them are good, because that would be a lie. We have good and bad people as well. I think that if you're in areas where you're in the forest, you're living in the woods, and you're not being intrusive to them and chasing them up mountains and chasing them down cave system and putting them in situations that they feel threatened where they have to do something to protect themselves, I don't see a problem with it. I don't. Like I said, but it comes down to respect. We want them to respect our boundaries, and they want us to respect theirs. Here, if they start the interaction, I'm more than happy. Do I go out and chase them down? No, I don't. I don't need to. They're either looking in the window or tapping on it or doing something anyway. But I mean, I never have. That's just never been the way I do anything. Like, I don't have a special technique. I just go out in the woods and I'm me. I go out with an open heart. I think people enjoy trying to engage with them, and I think it can be a positive experience. But do we do it because they need us? They don't need anything from us. They got it all taken care of all by themselves. But I think that if you're going to be in the woods, if you're going to live in the woods, if you're going to visit the woods and be actively in the woods, then I don't think that there's a problem with it if it's done in the correct way.
What would constitute a Sasquatch wanting to get to know humans?
Well, I think number one, it's taught to them at a very young age not to trust us. I mean, their laws are they're not to have that contact with us. Some clans are more rigid about that than others. But it's literally bred into them and taught to them from the time they were infants that the potential for us to hurt them is severe. You know, we hunt them, our government chases them down, cages them like, you know, they're wild animals, which they're not. And a lot of good things have not come from our people. That being said, we really do have some fabulous people that habituate with them and want to know about them and learn from them. And those people that have those kind of a pure heart, they know, they can read your intent. So if you're putting yourself, you know, like with you, when you go out there, the ones that are in that area you go to, they're not scared of you. They're not fearful. They don't have the need to feel like they have to do something to you because they know your intent is pure. You know, and when you encounter, like if you go into the woods, when you go into those woods, you're going to feel your body automatically, even if you don't know how to read the energy and sort it out and figure out what it is, your body knows it. If you walk out there and you have that bad feeling, like something's off, there's no reason for you to push it to lead into a negative encounter. Just say, okay, fine, I'll go back another day, and then go back another day. And chances are you're not going to have that negative situation. And, you know, I think if you read your situations when you go into it more, you have a much better chance of the positive interaction and a continuing interaction.
Well, that's a good thing. What clues should we look for?
I always tell people, you know, obviously everybody goes out and looks for the footprints. Look for some of the stick structures. Don't mess with the structures. Just because you see them doesn't mean you need to do anything with them. You know, look and see if it's an area that looks like it has structures, or see if there's noticeable signs that they've been in the area. If you do feel that they've been in the area, number one, again, don't mess with the structures. It's communication for them. They don't need you to help them with it. But you can be in that area. You know, you don't have to go knee deep into the area. Stay on the outskirts of it and give them that opportunity to come to you. You know, you can do it and have a positive experience without all kinds of chaos and, you know, bad things going on. It's when we push the envelope that it turns that way. And it's not always our fault, but in a lot of times we've brought it on ourselves. You know, and then people think that when they see them, if they yell at them, if they scream at them, or, you know, they wave their hands at them, that they're under attack. They're not under attack. They're trying to get you without any type of physical violence, or trying to get you to leave the area. You're not supposed to be in it. It could be for their benefit. It could be for your benefit. There could be something else there that can hurt you, that they're trying to persuade you to leave the area for. You know, so it comes down to being aware of what you're going into, you know, the vibe you get when you're out there, and the signs.
Okay, what would constitute a Sasquatch being angry with a person?
The first thing is if you get too close to their kids. They don't, you know, if they want to bring a child to you to see, which they have done that with me before, it's on their terms, not mine. You know, they brought the baby quite close. I never once made a move towards that child. I let them decide how close it was going to be. I let them decide everything so that they were in control of that. And there was no issues. You know, if you come into an area and they're hunting and trying to get food for their family, they may not be thrilled that you're there at that time. It doesn't mean that you can't be back at a later time. You know, if their families are there, if the entire clan's there, if the women are there and they don't want you near the females, you know, they have their own lives too. You know, we have certain things. Dave, if you go somewhere with your wife and there's somebody getting really pushy with her and trying to hang all over her, you're not going to be appreciative of that. You're going to put a stop to it. You're going to shut it down. It's not any different. They have their, you know, the males have their women out there, and their women are nervous because people are getting too close for whatever reason. They're going to protect them. You know, if they have something going on there, they're not going to want you there. If they're out there getting food and you're coming into that area, it's going to be a problem. I had a really good friend that was actually at his friend's place, and he had cabins that he rented out, and he got there late at night, and they were just these little tiny cabins that were up on concrete blocks. And it was much later than he normally got there. Never had a problem with any of the Sasquatch there. It was fine every time he had ever been there. He got there very late at night. He got in the cabin, and laid down, and they shook the cabin. They had no intention of hurting him. They just didn't want him outside. You know, what it had come down to was they had one of the kids there. They were teaching him how to hunt, and he interrupted it. He was terrified. You know, the whole building's getting wiggled back and forth, and it absolutely terrified him. All they wanted him to do was stay put. Just stay in there. Don't come out until the kids are gone. You know, so there's a lot of different things. If you go in an area where possibly you've had our type of people in there before that were very intrusive and it wasn't safe for them, they're not going to want anybody else coming in either. You know, it's going to make them trustworthy when it comes to our type of people.
Robin McRae is our guest tonight on the Cryptid Report. A couple questions here. Let's go to Maggie. Are women just as threatening as men in those scenarios with youngsters in Sasquatch groups?
I want to say that they're not, but they probably are, because there's just as many women that will go out there and cause problems. They do. I will say, you know, I've noticed that they do seem to be calmer with women than they do. You know, not that women don't get chased out too, but they do tend to be a little bit calmer with women.
Well, women do give a different energy than men, that's for sure.
Yeah.
An area I know for a fact they're at, I heard them making clinking sounds like a small branch being hit against a can. Are they trying to communicate or trying to make music?
Actually, they could be doing both, but a lot of times if you're out there and they're doing that, excuse me, it's not so much music as they're just saying, okay, letting you know that I'm here. I'm letting you know I'm here so that you can act accordingly and we're not going to have any problems.
Okay. So music, do they create their own music? Is that why
Sure.
they love Indian drums? Is that why they love or get curious if they hear a car, you know, coming, sitting, idling, but they can hear the music blasting in the background?
You know, depending on the music, if it's not a harsh music, like I don't know a lot of them that like the rap or whatever, but they are drawn to music. They love the beats to it. They love the sound of it. They love the frequency. There's such a frequency in the music. And these are an energy-based being that focus a lot on the energy and the frequency of everything because they're at a higher energy and frequency. So when you have music, there is a higher frequency than without it. And they are very attracted to music, very much so. They want to hear it. They want to check it out. You know, I mean, it seems to really entice them. When my daughter was little, she played the clarinet, and she would go outside and sit on a blanket. She'd play the clarinet for them, and they always showed up as soon as they heard her. She'd start playing that clarinet. She was right there. I had somebody come out one time and brought the buffalo drums out, and they loved it. But I would play at Christmas time. I had a CD player I'd put out on the porch for them, and I would play Christmas music, and they would come right up by the house every single time. And I think it has to do with that, the vibration, you know, which is a frequency, and the energy that radiates from the music. And they just like it. It makes them feel good, just like it does us.
It is about the feelings, isn't it? It's always about the feelings.
It is.
Who's got the safe feelings out there?
Yeah.
I don't know. Would you walk up to one?
I have, yes.
What's that like?
It was different. It wasn't a planned thing. The one actually approached me in my yard, and he got like 10 feet from me. Another one, I was not trying to get that up close and personal, but he had my pony on a rope, and he was not trying to hurt the pony. He was trying to walk it into the woods, and the pony was scared. So I grabbed the rope on the end that the pony was at. Why I did it, I don't know. It was stupid because there was no way, excuse the bird. there was no way I was ever going to step. He hears me talking. He loves the phone. I'm sorry, guys. But I pulled the rope back. Like I thought, like I was going to stop him from pulling this pony into the woods. And there's no way I could have. And I literally looked like I was skiing across the grass, and I ended up toe to toe. When I ended up, he was about 14 feet. And when I got toe to toe with him, I thought, I am not looking up in those big eyes, because if I do, I'm not scared right now. But if I look up, I didn't know if I'd get scared or not. He laughed at me. He literally laughed at me and dropped the rope. It was ridiculous. He probably thought this stupid little person I could squash like a bug, he let it go, and I had one that came, it had things that it wanted me to do, and it was late at night, and it literally came up to me in my yard. And they do what they call a trancing, which makes it easier for you to deal with a lot of things, where your mind knows what's going on, but your body's non-reactive. And he came up and placed his hand on my wrist. Like, I still remember what the hair felt like when it, came down on my wrist. The eyes were amazing. Like, I will never forget that. I've never seen anything like that. Those eyes, you could look in forever. And his were just beautiful, and it was very peaceful.
That's nice. That's nice. Do you look him in the eye? Because
a lot of people say don't.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Like, with a lot of wild animals out there, or even domesticated animals, you're never supposed to make that eye contact.
Yeah. You know what? They've never told me not to, but they've never told me to look them in the eye. For me, I do it as a judgment call. If they're 99% of the time, they're not up close to me, like they might be in the tree line, they might be running across the backyard, whatever. And then I don't find a problem with it. I was nervous about doing that with that one that I was toe to toe with, because I didn't know how he would react. And I think it comes down to the individual. If you're right up in their face and you're looking in your eyes, they're going to feel that it's threatening. And I would think that could be more problematic. The one in the front yard that wanted my help with some things, I don't think I was necessarily trying to stare at his eyes as much as he was starting to stare into mine. And it was very calming. It was very peaceful. So I get asked that a lot, and I have never gotten any concrete proof either way. My experiences have been, it's a judgment call at the time. Some of them seem very tolerant of it, depending on how far away you are from them. Others are not. My next door neighbor, when the one was in her backyard, her son was back there. Of course, he was an adult. And he looked it right in the eye, because he wasn't anticipating seeing it. And it never did anything to him. It never tried to hurt him or harm him in any way.
Okay. Let me think here for a second, because I need to know about the signs. You say footprints. You say, look for tree structures. What are some of the subtle things that we should be looking for? Whether it's branches, leaves, anything like that. In my area, I can't find them. I can't figure it out.
Well, to begin with, generally, if you just show up out there, they're going to know you're there. And just like we talked about earlier, be more aware of what are things that you can do that might be encouraging for them to come towards you, such as a campfire, cook hot dogs on it so they can smell the food. Laughter, they're very intrigued by laughter. It's a high energy thing and a high frequency thing, and it's joyous, and it makes your soul feel good. And so if you're doing those kind of things, it brings them to you, which is more in their comfort zone than yours. When you're looking for structures, the arches can be used for several different things. It can be used as a directional as well as some other things. But look for structures on the ground. All of the things that they do are so subtle that they blend in. They make them that way on purpose. So, your arches, there's always an anchor. When it's bent over, you find your end of it is either looped or put under something to hold it down. It's anchored down. If you're finding things in the trees that you think might be a structure, they're always locked in so that they're not going to fall out. It's always some kind of a locking pattern in there, not just where it fell down from the top of the tree. You know, if I'm out in the woods and I love structures and I'm out there, the first thing I do if I find something that could be a structure is I look around the area. Is there a broken branch up high it fell down from? You know, look for the obvious things that are not them first. When you can't find the obvious things to show that it's not them, start looking to see, are those branches locked? And they literally, I know it sounds crazy, they're literally locked. Whether it's they're down in a V and there's another one placed on top of it to lock it in, but there's always some way that it's anchored, whether it's up in the trees, whether it's an arch, whatever. Look for some of these, you know, the X's on the ground, patterns on the ground of structures, or I mean of branches or rocks or whatever, that really, once you think about it, you can tell, hi Cat Chaser, you can tell that it's not going to be a natural fall in that manner.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Makes a lot of sense. Robin, as we start to close this out, I want to get to one final question here from Sovereign. Have you noticed strange bites that I believe gnomes leave on apples? They have a strange bite pattern. Have you seen this? And why do they leave half-bitten apples on the ground?
Do you know, I'm not really sure. Like with the gnomes, number one, they're pranksters, they're tricksters. So, you know, there's that. Then you get these things with the bites on the ground. You also have to watch wild hogs will leave a weird pattern of bites as well. Do gnomes do that? You know, I haven't heard that they have a certain particular bite pattern. I know that they are tricksters, they are pranksters, they will do things to set you up. So, I mean, you've got that going in there as well.
Awesome. Robin, tell everybody where they can find your information or reach out to you.
I do not have a channel. I get asked that a lot. I don't have a channel. That's why I have you and Duke. And so if anybody wants to reach me on Facebook, I'm under Robin Haynes, Haynes McCrae. If you go to Robin McCrae, you'll never get me. Or you can email me at RLYNNE and then a period and then Forest, but it's spelled FOREST, only one R, people@gmail.com. So arlyn.forestpeople@gmail.com. And I always answer everybody back. It may take me a minute, but I always answer everybody.
Awesome. Robin, we love you around here, and we will talk
Love
to you.
You too, sweetie.
Thank you for filling in on the Cryptid Report.
Always.
Always. And a big thank you to everybody tuning us in tonight, including Frank Milburn and Steve Stockton from Among the Missing. What a great show we had tonight. So thank you for making it special. Oh, we got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night. Thank you. Appreciate you, my dear.
Well, I appreciate you having me on all the time. I love you.
Oh, yeah. I'm a big fan of yours. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be honest with you. When I finally see you in Nebraska, I'm going to get your autograph.
Oh my God.
I am.
I just want a hug. I'm a hugger.
Yes, and I want a hug and an autograph.
You will get it. I promise. I can't wait to get you there. It's going to be so much fun. I've been working hard on everything on this end, so I'm excited about it. We are going to have so much fun there. It's going to be like, the whole gang's going to be there.
Oh yeah. Let's see here. I'm trying to follow this whole thing with the Titanic sub on Twitter.
Isn't that crazy? There's something severely up with that. Like, they had all tracking devices off of that, the box that bings was off of it, everything. That there's so much more to that than what's really going on, I think.
Oh, thank you, Maggie. Magster from Australia. They call her Magster down there. Her dad called her the lovely magpie.
Mike Bothell had a question about the fires, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if he's still in chat or not. But he asked like 3 times and we didn't get to him. So if he's still in there, he needs to type it in.
All right. Hold on, Magster. I got to flash you up here. There you are. Thank you to Human Carl and Cat Chaser as well. I can't even get comfortable right now.
I know. I feel so bad for you.
I'm so uncomfortable right now. Oh, hopefully I can sneak away tomorrow. Hopefully.
Okay. There's 2 fire questions. Damien wanted to know, do they use fire? Yes, some clans do. Some clans choose not to. But yes, a lot of them do. Mike wanted to know, with all the forest fires going on, where do they go for shelter? They will evacuate the area much like we would. They try to go down towards the water. Obviously, I think they avoid the cave system. If they have a cave system that will get them underground and out in a different area, they'll go through there to evacuate it. They're not going to go hide in the cave system and not be able to get out of it. Like if it's a dead end in there, they're not going to go in there. They will come down the mountains. They will get out any way that they possibly can. They have a lot of underground tunnels. The tunnel systems, people have no idea how many of the tunnel systems are down there. So a lot of them will go down through those tunnel systems and get out because it's less smoky and, they're not going to be seen as easily.
Sovereign, back it off with the accusations a little bit, please. Okay. There's 0 proof. 0.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. What else? Anybody else got questions for?
Yeah. Duke's right. They'll get in a portal, they open a rift, whatever they need to do. But again, that depends on the clan. Some of them will use those abilities and use the portals. Others won't. But they will. If it's a clan that is very into using the paranormal abilities and they can get to the portal, they also have portals that are almost portable where they can just open it up at any time and they'll hop in and get out. But again, it goes back to are the clans that are involved in the fires, are they ones that are going to use those abilities?
Does Sasquatch have any magical abilities? Okay. Never mind, the cloaking or whatever, but does it have any magical abilities?
I don't necessarily, in my opinion, okay, nothing to base this on other than experiences. I think it's paranormal abilities. I mean, because everything they do it because they're using that frequency and the energy. Is it magic? I guess you can kind of say to a degree it is. They're not pulling rabbits out of a hat, but they can. And some of the females that are almost like, a witch doctor type thing, they have some wicked skills. You know, I don't know whether or not I would say it's a kind of magic that, you know, like we have magicians that do things that I don't think it's like that. But yeah, I mean, to a certain degree, it's a paranormal ability, but I think it comes down to the same thing. They can do these things, they can do the levitation, they can shapeshift, they can do all of these crazy things that are just so hard for people to believe.
And they climb trees faster than Super Duke.
Oh my gosh. Unbelievable. Just, you would be, you would think something that big, it would be harder. Now, like I know when Zerky got big enough out in the yard, he had this one tree he played in all the time, and he snapped that sucker in half, climbing it up so much. So now he's moved over to the bigger tree in the yard, and he goes up that thing 1,000 miles an hour, and it's a big enough tree to support him. But yeah,
Couple questions.
Sure.
From Renee. Do you believe that Bigfoot is interdimensional?
Yes. He is a flesh and blood and also multidimensional being.
Much like me.
Yes. We always see Dave popping in and out of portals.
Yeah. Or second question, what is the balls of light we can see when they are around?
Orbs, and orbs are their own type of energy beings. The Sasquatch will, they can create them. I mean, they can literally take their own hands and create them. I've watched them play ball, like they toss them up in the air, like, and then I've seen other ones where they followed them around. I know people that have actually seen other little beings inside the ball. I've seen multiple different colors of them. I had one that was a light blue in color go parallel with our truck and then just charged the truck, and then it dissipated when it got there. But they're all orbs. They're all a type of energy being.
Okay, let's go to Damien. How do they open those portals? Using trees or tech?
No, it's all energy. It really is. Believe it or not, it comes down, and I hate to sound like broken record. That's the truth. They can use that energy to do any bloody thing they want to do. And you're taking that energy to be able to open it. You manipulate the energy and it simply opens. And there's a lot of people, myself included, that can do it as well.
If you can do it, anybody can do it.
If I can do it, a chimp can do it.
Pam is saying, will I ever see the one I saw last summer or fall again?
It's very possible. Never say never. I don't think it's going to happen anytime in the drastic future, but never say never, Pammy, because I think you probably will.
I thought so too. That was my initial thought.
Yeah, and it watches her. I mean, he's around. Even if she's not seeing him, he's seeing her.
Yeah. Yeah, he likes you, Pammy.
He does. He really does.
He likes you. Even though, you may cheer for the wrong baseball team. He still likes you. All right. Damien is wondering, what about rods? Are they using them to hunt?
Do you know, I'm not going to say that's impossible. Like I've seen a ton of different rods going around. I'm going to be honest and tell you, I don't know, because I've never known them to use them to hunt, but that doesn't mean that they don't. Those rods are another form of an energy being, and they will use them for scouts, whether it's to hunt or whatever. The ETs use them for the same thing. They're like little scouts, and they go off, and they're their own thing. I mean, they're their own little entity.
I could see that. I can totally see that. Works for me. Let's see here. Any other questions? Give me 2 seconds here, Robin. No more questions for you. They've dried.
Wow. I know.
They've dried up.
Pammy, yes. Yeah, it's probably him.
Well, if you can find a Sasquatch to walk on my back right now.
Yeah, no kidding. Derek wanted to know how old was I when I first met them. You're talking, I was very young. I can remember like 3 or 4 years old. According to them, it was before that they'd watched me, out in the yard with my mom and dad or whatever. But yeah, I was like 3 or 4. Mike wants to know what kind of gifts do they give us as humans? White rocks, feathers, colorful leaves. I've had flowers left on my porch. There was a time when I had some that were forever bringing me possums, and I love possums, don't get me wrong, but I don't eat possums. And I would gift them whatever food I was gifting them, and they would secure a possum for me. Yeah. And so I would like get this possum and I'd take it up the road and let it go. And I'd say, okay, tell your friends, stay away from my house. It's not safe. But yeah, it's white rocks, it's feathers, it's, little things that they can grab if they think it's something that you might like or use. I had them bring me purple lace one time that they probably got out of somebody's trash.
Right, Robin. Go ahead. I'll be right back.
Okay. Let's see what else we got. Let's see. I know I feel bad for Dave's back. I'm the cat. She's never denied it. Okay, sunglasses. Yeah, they will, anything they can get their hands on that they think that you're going to like, they have no problem gifting it. They really aren't overly particular. I know a big thing is the white rocks. White is a sacred thing for them. So, the white rocks, feathers, that type of thing are really seem to be more than not. I've been gifted wires that they thought I needed for my cable because they ran off the cable guy. So, I needed the wires to fix it, and they didn't chase him at all. They just terrified him. They shook the bushes while he was standing next to it, and he got terrified and left. So the next morning they had a pile of wires for me sitting up on the porch when my husband went to go to work. So it just depends on, what they think you need as far as what they give you. The white rocks are friendships, so are feathers. So those are real popular. Let's see. Do they make homemade gifts? Actually, yeah. And they make homemade toys for the kids. Braided things. They'll braid like the palms off the palmettos, not a lot. I've only seen like one portion of one that they actually did that on. Anything that, grasses that are stripped. They actually, in Russia, Igor Borstov sent me a picture of it where they found that the tall grasses had been braided. And the reason that they feel very confident that it came from the Sasquatch was it was almost like a lookout peak where they would look down and they would watch people, and it was braided. It was absolutely braided, and they braid a specific way. Like at the end of the braid, there's a definite loop in it, and that's kind of like their trademark signature, and this was all the same way. Are Sasquatch the hierarchy over dogmen in the forest? No, not at all. Dogmen are kind of like the police of the woods. I don't necessarily think that they look at it as a hierarchy. You have some areas that they won't share territory, and then you have some places like, here, and I know I can give you probably 20 different people that they have both the dogmen and the Sasquatch there. No, they're not sitting around and having meals together and being buddies, but they will share the land. Other places you go, it's individualized as to whether or not they are going to. It's just like if you move out in the country and you don't want any neighbors, you're going to buy land away from everybody, and then other people, they're fine having neighbors. They want neighbors. So it's an individualized thing. I have a picture of one that's a hybrid from a dogman and a Sasquatch parent. So, at some point they do interact, obviously, but I don't feel like it's a hierarchy, at least not that I've witnessed. Now, other places it could be different. I have not witnessed that. I think that there's a mutual respect between them. The Sasquatch do their thing, the dogmen do their thing. And again, the dogmen are more stoic, and they seem to be more like they're guarding the entire woods overall. see. When I was in Michigan, I lived in Middle Michigan, and I not across the bridge, but it was kind of like in the middle of the state. And then I also, at one point, I lived over in the Thumb area, and either place I went, it was just as populated with them. I've never really lived anywhere where it wasn't. When I lived in the middle of the state towards the western side, the group that I had there, I had 10 acres of land, and it was in the Manistee National Forest, and they walked around uncloaked all the time. It was, it was just very normal to look out and see somebody walking across the yard. They cloaked as well. I mean, I would watch them cloak, at various times, but it was not uncommon to see them in full physical form during the day or at night. What were you saying about the sub? I'm not sure about that. Yes, they make homemade gifts. Yes, Para, they do share names with me. And a lot of times when I'm speaking to them for other people, because I do the mind speak with them, they will give me their names or the name that they want to be called by. And, most of the time they're fairly decent about it. Their pronunciation is a little bit different than ours. So I generally, if I'm having a hard time understanding how they pronounce it, I'll say, show me the letters, show me how, and they're pretty good about doing that. But yeah, most of the time they seem forthcoming with them. Sometimes, depending on the situation, they are more hesitant.
Oh. I actually got my neck to crack.
What is considered a family gift to them? Give them a bag of apples. They'll take it home for the kids. In Duke's case, he gives them bacon. And right now his shopping list is bacon as well as cereal. Because there's an adolescent there that likes the Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Renee, it's not so much that they like or dislike. I mean, they all just kind of like are around each other. The Gugwees are the first thing that not all of them hate. The Gugwees are a little bit different. They are out there to kill. That's all they do. They're not safe for anything. Whether it's our people, their people, another cryptid, anything. Gugwees are just bad all the way around.
Where are the Gugwees?
I believe, my own personal belief is they go all over. I don't think they're limited to any certain area. I think they're more prominent in some. We know that there's a good base of them in Louisiana. And I think up in the mountains that you definitely get some. But I don't know. I mean, Duke, that one would be a Duke question because he talks to more people that deal with the Gugwees. From the contacts that I have and that have shared with me that they thought they've seen them, they're everywhere. I mean, I don't think they're not as prominent as a Dogman or a Bigfoot, but they're still there. I knew somebody that had gotten attacked and was in Virginia. Doesn't mean the whole state's loaded with them, but they're out there. I don't think they have as many numbers as per se the Dogman and the Sasquatch, but they're definitely there and they're definitely a problem. Let's see. How long do you think people are watched before an interaction might likely to happen? Maggie, that depends on what they see. If they're watching you and they're studying you and they feel comfortable with you and they feel you have an open heart, and they think, the other thing people don't realize is they want to make sure you're ready for it too. If you're talking about a positive encounter and not an accidental and you're not chasing them around, a lot of them will wait until they think that person can handle it. Just because you think you can handle it doesn't mean they think you can handle it. So it just, whenever that particular individual gets comfortable enough, some people are surprised at how quickly it happens. Other people are like, why? It's been taking years. It just depends on the comfort zone of that individual. Yeah, rocks with quartz make a good gift. Be careful when you give crystals. Here's the deal. They know how to use crystals for good things and for bad things. So I always tell people, I myself don't know a lot about, which crystals do what. I mean, I know basic things, but certainly not even 1/10 of what I should. But I will tell you this, and I've seen it happen before. They know what to do with crystals. whether it's to spy on you, whether it's to watch you like it's an looking glass, or whether they're going to use it to do whatever. I mean, there's good things they'll do with it as well. So when you give crystals, quartz seems to be fairly safe, but be careful. Choose the crystal that you give them wisely. Yeah, Sovereign, they will use certain grasses to make knots. Yes, Mike, they will fight over food territory. Just like if you are trying to, go to the grocery store and get food and somebody takes it right out of your cart, you're not going to be thrilled either. Oh, I can hear small airplane in their spots. Do you know, Damien, it's funny you would say that, because I used to hear what was almost sounded like a generator noise. And then I also, every now and then, I get that metal clinking, like somebody else had asked about in the feed earlier. I don't know why. I will say this. I know sometimes, the ETs do tend to track a lot of the cryptids. And when the ETs are around, you hear a lot of those noises. The other thing is, you would be amazed at the noises that they can copy. And if they are used to hearing a lot of the airplane noises, they can duplicate that. So it wouldn't be that uncommon or that far stretched to think that they're not doing it themselves, whether it's done guttural in the throat, whether it's with their mouth or whatever. So yeah, they just completely, there's nothing they can't mimic. That's what's so crazy about it, down to your voice. Yeah, and they do love the garlic and the pears. Certain areas like the pears, others don't know about pears, and so they're curious about them and they want to taste them. Garlic they use as an insect repellent as well. Pammy, they do well with my dogs. They adore my dogs. They play with my dogs. They toss things into the backyard for my dogs. I've looked outside at night when I had my animal rescue, and I had a quarantine area where I had kennels in my front yard so that the dogs that were quarantined there had no contact with the other dogs, because none of my dogs stay out overnight, but the quarantine ones did. And I would look out there and they'd be picking them up and playing with them. I just don't have that problem. The problem that they have with dogs is when the dogs are allowed to chase them, bark at them, hunt them, go after their families, and then they're going to eliminate the process. Just like you would if if a dog was chasing one of your kids or your grandchildren or your family or even yourself, you're going to defend yourself. I have never had in my entire life a problem with them hurting my dogs or any of my animals.
Robin, how come some people talk about when Sasquatch is around, there's an odor, a smell, yet encounter I've had, I've never had the odor.
Right. Two things. Number one, they can project any emotion, smell, whatever they want to. A lot of people say it's a defense mechanism. That's not my belief, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. My experience have not been that it's a defense mechanism. The ones that I've had that have had an odor, it's because, poor hygiene is one reason. I've seen some that have had poop caked all over their butt because they're just too lazy to clean it off. And it's like, you want to give them a bar of soap. I have one that comes and visits, smells like a skunk. The guy loves skunk odor. He will rub skunks all over him. I know females that will rub flowers all over them. I would say for every 10, probably 8 have no odor. The ones I'm real close to, I don't ever smell it. Sometimes you'll smell a soft dirt smell, but not a bad smell. I just don't think, I'm not a believer that they all smell. I never have been. I think, I want to say for every 9.9 times I'm around them, I don't have an odor. I don't get it from them. Now I'll be in bed at night and I like my window open. If it's not too hot outside, I always leave the window open so I can hear them at night, because they'll go and sit under my window and chatter. And once in a while, they'll project a smell in, but it's nothing that's overly bad. It's, one night I was laying in bed and all of a sudden it smelled like, coffee. Another night one of them had to have been down by the swamp up the road because I smelled swamp water. And I was like, okay, I don't know who you are, but like, go hose yourself off, like do something, please. And it was gone right away. So, you know, it just depends on the individual, but most of them, I don't believe, smell at all.
Right. That is, yeah, because that is something that I have noticed quite a bit, is that in all my encounters with it, I have never, ever had a Sasquatch stink.
Yeah.
That musty odor.
So for me, it's really rare. Like I said, when Mike is here, you know, he rubs skunk all over him. So, you know, we know it's him. And what's really amazing with it is it's so pungent and so strong. You would think like you had like 50 skunk in your backyard, and I'm like scrambling around and getting the dogs in or whatever. And there's never a smell on the dogs, never. And I'll ask if it's him, and he'll answer and respond. And I'm like, buddy, you got to tone it down. You just got to draw it back a little, because it's really overpowering. But it's very rare that I have that. Oh, Restore, you're very welcome, sweetie. Thank you so much for coming on and show and watching. I appreciate you. And Duke went out shopping for all their goodies for his trip up into the mountains.
Well, I'm going to wrap things up here, Robin, because
sounds good to me.
I have to finish up here.
Yeah, and you're in pain. You need to go soak in Epsom salts.
I'm going to. I promise you I am.
But thank you so much for having me on again, Dave. And thank you guys for sticking around. I appreciate you.
Always a pleasure to have you here, Robin. We love you so much.
Oh, I love you guys too.
Tomorrow night on the show, Merle is back. So get ready to Merle it up as we talk paranormal, Ghosts of the Great White North. Thank you to Catherine, Simon ×2, Deb, Human Carl ×2, Area 51, Pammy, Jenny, Erom, Gizmo, Cat Chaser, and Maggie for the super chats tonight. Very much appreciating everything that you do. Hi, Neil Warden. How you doing, buddy? And thank you so much for all of you for being here. And let's Merle it up tomorrow night, shall we? Don't forget to hit subscribe, ring that bell, and follow us on all social media platforms. We'll talk to you soon. Bye, Robin.
Bye. Love you guys.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.